Query and Schultz, brought to you by Dave & Buster's. Eat, drink, play.
Want your voice to be heard? Dial us up now at 239-1260. This is Query and Schultz on Fox Sports 1260 Indy Sports Station.
Keystone Sports Review, Derek, at 56th and Keystone, right?
56th and Keystone,
I always get confused by that. 56th and Keystone Sports Review, KSR, our home away from home is where you will find us today, the first Wednesday of the year. As a matter of fact, with Larry and the gang, that means that pizzas are half off dine-in between now and 7 o'clock. And you're not going to find a better pizza in Indianapolis, so why not come by, say hi. You can enjoy a cold beer or a soft drink, whatever your preference. Hang out and listen to the show, and plenty to talk about today, Derek, including the big news that's not necessarily a big surprise. We now have a soft, if you will, target date. January 29th is the estimated day of return, or the target day of return for Victor Oladipo for the Pacers.
Good news. It's good to have that date. It's good to finally kind of have a grasp, but instead of just a general range, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever it is. So I'm not saying that I'm going to panic if Victor Oladipo doesn't play January 29th, but it's good to, at the very least, have that target date and know, okay, let's circle that on the calendars and let's hopefully see the Pacers franchise player back out there and healthy and in action.
Yeah, and it's against the Bulls, right?
Oh, I haven't actually looked.
Yeah, I think that's right. So that gives them – I had a feeling when he came back, it was, they weren't going to bring him back for, like, the Bucks. It was going to be a game where they had some flexibility. What's the number of minutes he gets in that game? Probably, 15 to 20, something like that?
I'm not sure how they're going to approach that, to be totally honest. I mean, I don't think he's going to go out there and play 40 minutes right away, but I'm not sure if they're going to put a cap on it or if he's going to be on and off. Like, he won't play in, let's say, a Sega Baba, but he'll play.
Second game of a back-to-back.
You know what I mean? Like, they'll keep him out maybe early on as he gets his sea legs in a second game. I'm not sure, honestly, Jake, how they'll handle it. That's actually a really good question.
We can talk about that, among other things, with Jeremiah Johnson coming up at 4 o'clock today when he joins the program. Big show lined up. We have Viator Schultz, shockingly sponsored by KSR. Larry actually writes that off on his taxes because it's such a bad segment, but that's coming up in 15 minutes.
It's not a bad segment. It's not a tax write-off.
Have you done your taxes?
KSR, yeah, my dad's a retired CPA.
Can
so
he do mine?
Wonderful. For a nominal fee, sure. It's none of those things.
What's
KSR is very proud to be the sponsor, not only of Biter Bowl Bleep, but of the show, and to have us out here every month. And I think that we shouldn't verbally insinuate otherwise, Jake.
Fair enough.
Okay?
Jeremiah at 4 o'clock. Raphael Esparza, our buddy from Las Vegas, talking odds, and especially with the NFL playoffs coming up, college football playoff championship on Monday. Raphael joins us in the 4 o'clock hour. Mark Howell is part of the committee that is putting together the college football national championship game for 2022, which will be at Lucas Oil Stadium, and he will join us to talk about exactly that at 5 o'clock, and then Larry from KSR will join us in the 6 o'clock hour. Derek, we have the YouTube stream back up, right?
We do, yes.
You're so geeked about this.
Yes, we are live right now. YouTube.com/Query and Schultz if you want to check us out. It's a little bit distracting. It's almost like we're two heavenly figures because of the sun streaming in through the windows behind us at KSR.
I'm sure we look great.
So it's almost like this glowing halo apparatus.
One time when I mentioned the sun coming through
and
and being in my eyes, and I put on sunglasses, and you mocked me, and now you see what I'm
you
talking
looked
about,
ridiculous,
right?
yeah.
Well, I mean, it was coming literally right into my eyes. I actually asked this question earlier today on Twitter, Derek. Would you rather have, we're in January now, right?
That's right, yes.
And I saw that we're supposed to get 16 inches of rain tomorrow or Friday. So my question is, would you rather have a beautiful day like today and have it be, and I realize this isn't the case today, but hypothetically speaking, if you had your choice through the month of January, would you want sun every single day and the temperature to never go over 20 degrees, or 55 to 60 every day but gray and some rain?
Oh, well, if you're offering me 55, 60, I'll take 55, 60 gray and rain. If you're saying 25 in sun or 40 in rain or 45 in rain, then I'm taking 25 in sun.
No, 55 in rain or...
No, 55 in rain, I'm
clear.
cool. 55 is warm to me. 55,
right.
I could
Especially
almost go
in January,
out.
Right?
Yeah, 55, I could almost go out in shorts. So I'm signing up for 55 even with rain. But 40 in rain is the worst weather. I would rather have 20 in snow than 40 in rain.
Yeah, it's bad.
40 in rain is the worst possible weather.
I noticed that you had mentioned that you caught a mouse and you're all excited about it.
I am excited about it.
Where did you catch it?
In my basement.
You have mice in your house?
Jake, it happens. It's an old house, and we haven't had a mouse in there or mice in there in the last 5 years. When we first moved into the house and we started like knocking down walls and roofs and all of that, we had a mouse that we finally got rid of. But we haven't had any problems with that the last couple of years. But I noticed that my son eats oatmeal for breakfast a lot of the time, or cereal, and I noticed that some of the oatmeal packets were open that were down in the basement because I get the economy size box at Sam's,
Yep.
and I was like, wait a minute here, this isn't right. And then I noticed droppings and things like that, so I said, I'm going to take this into my own hands, and I'm going to be the man of the house here and show this mouse or these mice who's boss. So I got these like retractable mice traps that are they're plastic, but they have like teeth. And they're very, very sensitive. Like, if you breathe on this thing too heavy, it just snap like that.
So did you kill the mouse, or was this a live trap and release?
Well, it was the former. Yeah.
You killed it?
Yeah. Yeah, the mouse was not... The mouse was not living anymore when I looked this morning.
Do you think he struggled?
No, I'm pretty sure it's instant because I did a couple of tests last night around 12:30. And I was like using like a wooden spoon to try to trigger the trap to see what kind of force we're talking about, and it's pretty heavy. I mean, these bad boys are.
So where did you dispose
serious.
of the mouse?
In my blue trash bin, the city issued blue trash bin.
The recycle one, or?
No, we have big blue trash bins that we use in Midtown in the city.
Okay.
So that's what I ended up using, and I feel bad. I mean, I was a hamster owner as a kid, so I do have an affinity for animals and all of that. But this mouse was causing a lot of problems, and it's pooping in my kids' oatmeal.
You realize that because your basement is now the death scene of a mouse, that means that other mice like me will visit the death scene. So you have now recruited, as soon as it gets out on mouse.com, that's a death scene, you're going to have all kinds of morbid mice showing up, taking pictures, selfies, Twitter posts, etc.
Well,
you have increased your problem.
I have good news, Jake. You know what my answer is to that?
What's that?
Set more traps. Because I bought a 10-pack on Amazon, so I've used a mouse trap so far.
Wait, it's a one-time use trap?
I think you can use it again.
Did you have to detach the mouse from the trap, or did you throw the trap away?
I threw the whole thing away. I wasn't interested in...
How much were the traps?
It was $15 for a 10-pack.
So you threw away $15?
No, for a 10-pack. So I get 10 traps. Yeah, so...
Let me just clarify this. You who will drive to Cloverdale to save 8 cents on a gallon of gas are too big a wuss to save yourself $1.50 by removing the mouse from the trap.
I couldn't bring myself...
That's nearly...
Listen, hear me out here.
That's like 18 gallons of gas for you.
As an animal lover, I couldn't bring myself to open up the trap and see the upper half of the mouse torso, all of that.
So does
sorry.
So does it break the neck or snap it in half?
I don't want to get too graphic here. People are trying to eat. They're trying to enjoy a beer here at KSR. They don't want to hear about the mice that are in my basement.
They're not having oatmeal.
Just know that it took care of business, and I set more traps in case there are more of his friends around, so there's going to be no more oatmeal fiascos or anything like that anymore. Problem solved.
So long as you think so. The reality is, Derek,
I took a picture. Do you want to see?
Sure. Okay. The mouse... As long as there's oatmeal, the mice will still find a way. The traps are not... What did you use as bait?
Peanut butter.
Okay. Sure. Let's see here. Oh, that poor fella. Yeah, the poor little guy. You don't even know that he's dead. You can't see. All you can see is his head. His head's just stuck in the trap.
Yeah.
Now, that looks like a rat.
No, it's just a field mouse.
I don't know. I mean, because rats...
No, rats are large.
Rats are friendly, though, supposedly.
No, they're awful.
Mice are pretty... They're awful. Pretty dangerous animals, but rats are actually pretty friendly.
All right, let's... this is
Look
starting
at the tail on that thing.
This is starting to go down a road that I don't want it to go. So let's kind of steer it back here. Back onto 465 here.
That's really unfortunate, this poor guy. Just wanted himself some peanut butter.
Well, he's not pooping in your food.
Well, he wasn't in yours either. He had the decency to get past the oatmeal itself. You know?
Should I show our folks on the live stream the picture, or
Sure,
do
you
they
do
not
that.
want to?
You do that.
I want to see that.
Yeah, you do that.
Should I save them from that? Biter Bobley.
Hey, Jake,
comes
it's
your way
Noah.
next.
I was pretty sure that Big Boy was the man of the house. Yeah, I would agree.
He will be soon. He's going to be dunking here pretty soon. He actually went on the potty again today, so that was great.
Breaking news: Crispy says he's stopping by today, depending on how his dentist appointment goes. Maybe Crispy will come with a swollen lip and not be able to talk.
I love
Not the worst.
how he was actually talking like that when he had a few too much Jaeger when we were at Dave & Buster's a couple of years ago, and then he got banned for walking out on his tab.
That's right.
But I think Crispy, it's funny how he needs to sound the trumpets. Crispy is coming. Every time he shows up at a remote, it has to be like a big thing. And if it's not a big thing, then he gets really mad at us.
Did you watch Matt Rhule's introductory press conference with the Carolina Panthers?
I actually didn't. Did that happen today?
Yeah, I saw it. I just saw some tweets about it. People were like, Matt Rhule is giving a valedictorian speech. Like, I guess he just went on and on and on and on and on and on and on. He was not. I saw him interviewed. Caroline Cahan, actually, our friend that used to work for the Colts, is now with the Carolina Panthers, and went down and interviewed him in Texas for the Panthers website, and he is not at all what I would have guessed in terms of his demeanor and his delivery.
How so?
I don't know, less, and I know he's a fabulous coach. I mean, his track record speaks for itself, and I think, like I said yesterday, I kind of think of him as like the Brad Stevens of football, but he was less commanding than I would have guessed. You know how some people, they speak and you're like, man, I can get behind this guy. Like, I can see why people buy into what he's saying. He just had less of a demanding delivery about him. He was cool, but I mean, obviously he knows the game. And it'll be interesting to see what he does with the Panthers for his $8.5 million a year, which would be nice money.
Yeah, he's the next big thing, right? And
Would your dad charge him a nominal fee for taxes?
Sometimes the next big thing, I'd probably charge him a little bit more,
Yeah,
knowing what he
hope.
makes.
What kind of nominal fee are we talking?
Sometimes the next
What's his
big
rate?
thing
What's his going
ends
rate?
up working out. Sometimes it ends up flopping.
Because I have 16 different W-9s
remember-
or whatever they're called.
Jake, remember when the Bears hired Mark Trestman?
Yeah.
And he's like this, right? He's this CFL
Yeah, he was a guru.
brain. Oh, my God. He's an offensive genius. And that dude, it was a total train wreck.
Well, he got what, 1 or 2 years?
I think he got 2 years, if I remember right. So there have been cases like that where people have been identified as the next big thing. Steve Spurrier was that with the Redskins. Remember how big of a deal that was when
Yeah.
the Redskins got Spurrier, and he was awful. So I don't think it's any slam dunk that Matt Rhule is the guy, but it did raise my eyebrows when the Colts talked to him 2 years ago, and I was like, really, the Temple guy? And I think he might have been 1 year in at Baylor at that point. It really gave the. I think it gave the impression that NFL teams were getting serious and keeping an eye on had a lot of respect already
Right.
for what he had done, and now it's only gotten better from there because he's continued to build up Baylor.
I think people should be encouraged by the fact that a guy that was clearly coveted by several teams in the league, Carolina was able to get him. Not New York, not L.A., not San Francisco, but Carolina.
I am a little bit surprised about the Giants not getting him because it feels like they might have a quarterback in Daniel Jones.
I would
maybe.
agree with that.
They've
I
got
think he's a nice player.
Saquon Barkley. It's not a roster that's devoid of talent. You have some good talent
They have
at the
good young
top.
talent,
You just
correct.
don't have any depth at all, and you have a lot of spots that are very, very weak, and a culture that seemingly is broken right now with where they've kind of devolved into over the last couple of
Like
years.
the neck of your mouse.
All right, don't make me feel bad
Well,
about
I'm
it.
just
This
saying.
is a celebratory thing.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Pete is on line 2.
Because I did it, Jake. I didn't have to go out of pocket for exterminator or anything. I did it. I was my own exterminator.
Okay.
Like if it's a
You could have just moved your oatmeal.
if it's mano y mano, I never have to worry about that because physically I'm going to take care of any threats. But when it comes to mice that run and hide, it's a little bit.
Were you able
difficult.
to determine where the mouse got in?
No.
Yeah,
No,
there's
I don't
half
know.
your challenge right there.
Yeah, I have no idea. I really don't know how he got in the basement. 239-1260.
cat.
We'll take some calls. My wife's allergic.
Okay.
And I have a dog that would
Have
not.
Ollivander stay in the basement.
My dog is an only dog. So he would
Just
not
have him
be
stay in the
favor of
basement.
a
Does he ever
cat.
go in the basement?
No, he sleeps in the bed with us. He's part of our family.
But I'm saying, when you're gone, put him in the basement, come home.
I'm not going to do
problem
that. It's dark
solved.
and scary down in the basement. Ollivander Longpaw Schultz sleeps in the big bed.
That's fair. Fair enough.
Fighter Bull Bleep comes your way next. Just getting started at KSR on a sunny Wednesday. Fox Sports 1260 and live on YouTube, youtube.com/Query and Schultz.
It's alright if you don't. I'm not afraid of you running away, honey. I get the feeling you won't. There is no sense in pretending. Your eyes give you away. Something inside you is feeling like I do. You said all there is to say. Baby, break down. Go ahead, give it to me. Break down, honey, take me through the night. Break down, not standing here. Can you see? Break down, it's alright. It's alright. It's alright. Break down. Go ahead, give it to me. Break down, honey, take me through the night. Break down, not standing here. Can you see? Break down, it's alright. It's alright. It's alright.
You're a rich girl and you're gone too far, 'cause you know it don't matter anyway. You can rely on the old man's money. You can rely on the old man's money. It's a bitch girl, but it's gone too far, 'cause you know it don't matter anyway. Say money, money won't get you too far, get you too far. Don't you know that it's wrong to take what is given you so far gone on your own? But you can get along if you try to be strong, but you'll never be strong. 'Cause you're a rich girl and you're gone too far, 'cause you know it don't matter anyway. You can rely on the old man's money. You can rely on the old man's money. It's a bitch girl, and it's gone too far, 'cause you know it don't matter anyway. So money, money won't get you too far, get you too far. High and dry, out of the rain. It's so easy to hurt others when you can't feel pain. And don't you know that love can't grow? 'Cause it's too much to give, 'cause you'd rather live for the thrill of it all. Oh, you're a rich girl, and you're gone too far, 'cause you know it don't matter anyway. And you can rely on the old man's money. You can rely on the old man's money. It's a bitch girl, and it's gone too far, 'cause you know it don't matter anyway. Say money, money won't get you too far. Say money, money won't get you too far. Say money, money won't get you too far, get you too far. And you say you can rely on the old man's money. You can rely on the old man's money. You're a rich girl, a rich girl. Oh, you're a rich, rich girl, yeah. Say money, money won't get you too far.
Query and Schultz, brought to you by Dave and Buster's. Eat, drink, play.
If he times his jump just right, Schultz can get net on an 8-foot basketball goal. This is Query and Schultz on Fox Sports 1260.
That's not even accurate. I can dunk on an 8-foot goal. I
Yeah.
could dunk pretty easily on an 8-foot goal. I could like tomahawk dunk. on an 8-foot goal.
I doubt that. Highly doubt that.
Goal's one of those things that, and we'll get to Biter Bowl Bleep here in just a second, but I had a longtime friend, still is one of my dearest friends, who is from Lebanon, who, I bring up Lebanon sometimes on the show. And he was a roommate of mine in college. And I don't remember if it was a Thanksgiving or Easter, one of the holidays where I wasn't able to go back to Connecticut. I was going up to Lebanon. He invited me to have Thanksgiving or Easter dinner with his family and his folks. And he was giving me directions to his house. And he said, just go up the road here, blah, 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 up 65, blah, 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 take a right here. And it's the third driveway with the goal. And so I was like, okay, cool. So I'm driving up there. I'm in my old Civic, and I'm looking around for a hockey goal in the driveway.
What?
And I don't see one. And, this
hockey
is
goal?
the old, Nokia cell phone days. So I called Joey, and I'm like, hey, what's the deal, man? I'm looking, third driveway doesn't have a goal. He's like, what are you talking about? The basketball goal. And I was like, oh, the hoop? And so I turned back around, and we never called it
hockey
We
goal?
never called it a basketball
What
goal
do you live on?
where I grew up.
What do you live next door to Wayne
It
and
was
Garth?
you shoot hoops. It's hoops in the driveway. Nobody said goal for anything.
Yeah, I never said goal either, but I would say that. Well, I don't know about that.
I think it's a
basketball
sneakers.
goal.
I think it's a sneakers, tennis shoes sort of thing.
No, I think people would say we put a basketball goal up in the yard or in the driveway. Everybody had that house where you had just a huge. I actually was very lucky because we did not have, my driveway was on a hill, but the people across the street in down one, John Banch's house, and then my next door neighbors had it was perfect, a wide driveway. It was 3 lanes. Well, no, it was 8 lanes wide for probably 20 feet with a goal there. And I shot, I can't tell you, that's all I would ever do, Derek, after school. I'm going to go shoot baskets.
Oh, that's all we did too. That or wiffle ball.
Yeah, we did it was pretty season dependent, I guess. We'd play backyard basketball. And I think I told you there was a family, the Curtises, that had a full court glass backboards court in their backyard in a subdivision near where I grew up. And it became, it was ridiculous. None of us knew the Curtises. The woman would come home from work and be like, hi, boys. And we'd be out playing, 20 guys playing basketball in their backyard. And then when people started pulling up their lawn furniture to hang out, if you were not in the game, they kind of started to put the kibosh on it. But we would play, depending on the season, basketball a lot. We wouldn't play wiffle ball, but we'd play home run derby or we'd play backyard Nerf football.
Yeah, not everyone had a full wiffle ball, stadium, diamond.
Yeah, most had a life.
All of that. Not everyone had that at their disposal.
Yeah,
so I
okay.
understand how blessed I was to, kind of have the knowledge and the space to put
Until
all of that together.
Until your parents had the first opportunity
And
to
the
do so, and they
organizational
went
brain.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre on
Not
it.
everyone has the intelligence really to pull
okay.
something, or the foresight to pull something like that off. It's a lot like with this YouTube stream where it's just I see things, Jake. I have visions, and once they come to fruition, it's amazing what ends up
I
happening.
have visions
to,
of people
to the future
digesting
of this
this
program.
show in a manner that actually financially assists us.
It's a rocket ship.
You know what I mean?
This will eventually financially assist us.
Okay.
People would be crazy to not hop on board here.
Yeah, okay.
Just like Biter Bowl
Like
Bleep.
we would see $1 of that.
Because we've got a sponsorship going with our friends at KSR for Biter Bowl Bleep, which comes your way right now.
It's the most anticipated show segment in Query and Schultz history. It's time for Buy It or Bullshit.
Biter Bowl Bleep brought to you by our friends at KSR. We're sitting right here, home of Indy's best wings. We will next be here 3 weeks from today. So 2 January shows at KSR to kick off 2020. 56 and Keystone on the northeastern edge of Midtown. If you're new to Biter Bowl Bleep, here's what we do. I give a statement, then Jake and I go back and forth whether we buy it or we think it's Bowl Bleep. Easy enough, right? You ready, Jake?
Sure.
Statement number 1, the Colts will trade up in the draft to snag a quarterback. Buy it or Bowl Bleep?
They certainly have the resources to do it because they have accumulated a lot of picks. But I'm going to say that that's bullshit. I know Jake Fromm from Georgia threw his hat in the ring today that he's going to enter the draft. I think there are going to be, and if you look, Derek, at quarterbacks right now still alive in the playoffs. The highest draft spot for any of them is Ryan Tannehill at 8th. Watson was 12th. Mahomes maybe was 12th and Watson was like 14. You can get a quarterback at 13 if you want to stay put. Chris Ballard, I think, really covets picks, and especially rounds 2 through 5 picks, so I don't see them surrendering those. I'm going to say they stay put. I could be wrong.
Me too. Yeah, I don't think you're going to have to trade up in front of Miami, LA, and Carolina, 5, 6, and 7. I don't even know who's picking 4. Are the Giants picking 4? Redskins are picking 2. Cincinnati's picking 1. I think the Giants might be picking 5. I'll look at the draft order.
Miami's 5, right?
Yeah, you would have to get up to 4 because you've got to. I think if you're trading up, you're trying to get Tua, right? So hypothetically, you would have to trade in front of that trio of teams that is all very likely to draft a quarterback. And I just think that the price is going to be too high. You would need the 13, the Washington pick, and probably at least next year's number 1. And you might need more than that just to get from 13 to 4. Because there's always an added tax on if you're trading up to get a quarterback. We've seen that in the past with what the Bears had to do to get in front of the Niners for Mitchell Trubisky, with what the Texans had to do to get Watson, with what the Rams had to do and the Eagles had to do to get Wentz and Goff. So I don't think Ballard's going to be willing to do that. We know that he's been a little bit of an asset hoarder, and I think he's not going to be willing to part with what it's going to take for them to move up, even if they really love Tua.
This from Noah. Hey, Jake, do you think it's possible Derek threw the trap with the mouse away because he's not strong enough to actually release the mouse from it? It's a great question.
No, I actually played around and tested. Thanks for asking, Noah, even though I know your question doesn't come from a genuine place. I actually played around with opening and shutting the traps and triggering them, and I have intimate knowledge of the
when you picked
traps.
it up, did you was it kind of, like holding it out like, or did it not bother you at all?
Not really. No, it didn't really bother me. I'm kind of as you guys know on this show, I'm kind of a guy's guy.
If you're a guy's guy, it wouldn't bother you. There's a mouse in the basement.
That stuff doesn't bother me. Well, I don't want them pooping on everything, Jake.
Okay.
They spread diseases and stuff. It's actually, you really shouldn't. It's like the worst thing to have in your house. I'd rather have like ants.
Okay.
Statement
What
number
about
2.
termites? You wouldn't want termites.
Archie Miller should be fired if Indiana can't make the NCAA tournament this year. Bite or bull bleep?
This is year number what for Archie Miller?
This is his 3rd year.
I'll say no because I think somebody should get the 4 years for like an entire class. But the question certainly should start being in the discussion. You look at, and I've said it before, and I don't know that Archie Miller's not the guy. I mean, don't misquote me here, but Kentucky knew right away that Billy Gillispie was a bad fit. And they didn't dilly-dally around. They you know what? They cut bait and they moved on. North Carolina knew right away that Matt Doherty was not a good fit. Matt Doherty having Dean Smith move from his office into like a coat closet on the 4th floor was not a real good move, but they didn't dilly-dally around. They said, you know what, this isn't going to work, and they moved on. So, that's what the big-time programs do. You don't worry about what people are going to think or how it looks or whatever else. You go out and you get your guy. I've always felt that Indiana has undersold itself in their coaching searches. I did, admittedly, think Archie Miller was a good hire because I liked what he had done at Dayton. But so far, that has not translated to Indiana. Whether it be their recruiting, is just he's not recruiting the right kind of players, whether it be he's not instilling an offense that caters to where their strengths are, they're not getting the ball where it needs to be. He's catering to players that are way too inconsistent. I don't know what it is. But the results right now at Indiana, missing the tournament is unacceptable at Indiana, period. It's unacceptable anywhere, but particularly at an Indiana where there was a great pride until 20 years ago of having the highest winning percentage in NCAA tournament history. Not making the tournament at Indiana is unacceptable. If they don't make it this year, I do think that, and I'm talking out of both sides here, I realize, by saying he should get 4 years, by saying that everybody else didn't dilly-dally around. But I think you at least give him time to show or to be able to say, look, you had an entire recruiting class worth of time to do something here, and it didn't work. So the seat gets really warm if they miss the tournament, Derek. If they did it, it wouldn't bother me. I'll put it to you that way. But I think he would get one more year.
I think he'll get one more year because of the way his contract is, and I think Indiana's kind of stuck with him for another year. I don't think they're going to be willing to eat the guarantees. I think it's fully guaranteed. He gets every penny through 2022 if he's cut right now.
I think Indiana's problem right now in athletics is they are feeling the effects of an athletic director that was more interested in winning press conferences and coming out arms raised to the cheer of fans at a halftime. Tom Allen may well be the guy, don't get me wrong, but they've already committed 7 years and over $20 million to the guy. I mean, they have no choice now, right? And then on the other hand, the Archie Miller hire, while again, I wasn't opposed to it when it happened, but the people that he didn't call, I mean, that was his guy. He targeted Archie Miller right away. That was who he wanted. He went out and got him. If you're going to go all in on a guy, somebody from Dayton, it seems like you should have had a more expansive search, personally. And that's the other thing that's interesting, Derek, is if Fred Glass is leaving, then who would be the guy that fires Archie Miller? Is a new AD going to come in and immediately make that change?
Or is it, if it's Dolson, is he more willing, and Scott Dolson, who's in-house,
Right.
is he more willing to keep him being part of that administration? And if it's a new guy, is he more willing to oust him?
Right.
I have no idea. That's actually you're actually asking good questions on today's show, which is really weird.
Thank you.
I'm floored about that. No, I don't think that he's going to be. I think that the question of should he be and will he be are two different things, but it's unacceptable in year 3 for Indiana not to make the NCAA tournament, period. Now, whether that means Archie Miller should be fired, I don't think it's going to happen, so I don't think it's worth wasting time over it. But, again, it's unacceptable for Indiana to miss the NCAA tournament in year 3 of Archie Miller. It wasn't that bad of a situation that he took over. Nate McMillan should get more credit for the Pacers' success this season. Buy it or bull bleep?
I buy that. I think Nate McMillan's done a nice job. You know, I talked yesterday about one of the things that he's done. I think Aaron Holiday is really having a nice come-out year, and I think that's because Nate McMillan has put Aaron Holiday in positions with T.J. McConnell on the floor with them, for example, to be able to flourish. And that's just one example of where I think he's been really good. I think he's put T.J. Warren, in situations where they're taking advantage of what T.J. Warren can do offensively, and to an extent they've done that with Jeremy Lamb at different times. The bigger thing is I do think that, the big question of can Sabonis and Turner play together on the floor? He's drawn Turner away from the basket offensively, and he's opened things up defensively with Turner down low that, and Sabonis has obviously been great. So there are areas, I get it. People, you can always make questions about a guy's rotation late in games or timeouts or those kinds of things. And there might be times where Nate McMillan makes a bad timeout or makes a bad adjustment. Those things happen over the course of 82 games. But for the most part, I think, yes, he's been really good this year.
I think Nate gets an ample amount of credit. I don't know. Maybe I'm the wrong person to ask. I've never been a huge Nate McMillan guy. I think he's fine. I think Nate McMillan is a perfectly fine NBA head coach. I think you could do a lot worse than Nate McMillan. There are probably only a handful of guys that better. I don't know how much it really matters, Jake. If we're ranking the impact of coaches, I think the NBA head coach probably ranks slightly above a baseball manager, don't you, for actual impact? I think you need, in order to be a great cook, you need to have the ingredients. Am I right in saying that?
Were you a great cook at Outback?
I was an excellent line cook.
So
I was a terrible grill cook, but I was great at saute and salads and apps.
What's the difference between a cook and a line cook?
Well, saute, you had several stations on the line.
Okay.
So I was a line cook, and I was versatile. I could go into any different station and hold my own, except grill, because I could just never quite temp the
grills,
steaks.
the steaks?
Right, yeah, because I couldn't organize it. I know how to temp a steak. I just couldn't organize it correctly, and I'd always end up overcooking a bunch of them, which we ended up eating on the line, which was a good thing. But
what
my
about
boss
the blooming
didn't love it.
onions? Did you ever have to do
I did
those?
Bloom. Yeah, I was on Bloom for a while. That was
on
kind of the
Bloom
bottom
for a while.
rung. It was Bloom, and then you work your way up to salad.
How
and then
hard is
apps.
the blooming onion? You just throw it in the fryer and hit 2.5 minutes and come back and bring it out.
You're completely wrong.
Shake it off and you're done.
Nope, you're completely wrong.
Did you ever throw ice cubes in the fryer? In the grease fryer?
No, that'd be very dangerous.
Oh, it's awesome.
No, we didn't do that.
The fireworks that would explode from that was awesome.
No, we did not do that. Bloom was actually, you had to be very delicate. There was a patented onion puncher that would cut the onion just like the Bloom, so it would flour out. And then you had to dust it, put it in the egg wash, take it out, dust it again, throw it in the fryer. If it overcooked, you're out. I mean, you had to hit that thing right on the nose, and I just had a good eye for it, for having it be crispy, golden awesomeness.
Jake, if Derek was more of a man's man, wouldn't he be a better grill cook? That's an excellent question from Spencer.
I just couldn't organize it correctly because these tickets would come in, and you'd get flooded with tickets. It's something you have 50 steaks on your grill. And I would always not be able to get like the 8-minute steaks away from the 6-minute steaks, from the 10-minute steaks, and it was difficult to do. Even though, honestly, in Bloomington, almost all of the orders, like 90% of them, were sirloins well done. That was most of the tickets were sirloins well done. I even butterflied a fillet once and did it well done. And why don't I just step on your steak if that's what you want me to do on it? I mean, butterfly a fillet well done. Why on earth would anyone do that? But that I would make all kinds of, whatever you asked me to do, I would do. But I like saute. That was fish and chicken, like the Alice Springs chicken with the honey mustard and the cheese and the bacon and the mushrooms and all that. I like to do that.
Yeah, you've lost me now.
Well, I looked up the caloric intake of all of those Outback menu items, and let me tell you, there's a reason why I got up to 190 when I was in college.
Fair enough.
The cheese fry is about the worst possible thing you could have. I think they actually wrote an article about that. No, Outback cheese fry, they did it. All restaurant items is the worst possible thing calories-wise.
My problem with Outback Steakhouse, Derek, is I have no off switch with that marble or the dark rye bread.
It's like pumpernickel, isn't it?
Is that what it is?
I
have no off switch with it. It's nonstop.
I may or may not have had a roommate that was a server who may or may not have had a customer at Outback down in Bloomington who sat at a table and said, "Can we get some of that chocolate bread?"
That's awesome.
And we still tell that story whenever we
awesome.
see pumpernickel or anything like that. No, I mean, I met my wife at Outback Steakhouse. She was a hostess and I was a line cook, and I have an affinity there, even though I can't eat any of the food anymore because I ate it so much, and now I just can't do it anymore.
By the way, Brandon and Lakin have shown up and are already skulking the live feed camera.
We'll get both of them. We'll get both of them on the YouTube stream. Last statement here, Jake, for buy it or bull bleep. If your holiday decorations aren't down by the end of this weekend, you're officially lazy. Buy it or bull bleep.
I would agree with that because when do and I get it. I mean, when do the 12 days of Christmas end?
Well, isn't it for Orthodox? Isn't it like January 5th or something?
Yeah, so
I think
if
there
we're
is an
past that, then
extended
yes.
one.
If we're past that, then yes.
I mean, my feeling, I have to have them. I'm OCD, so I have to have them down by New Year's Day, by the end of New Year's Day. That's like the hard cutoff for me. But if you've had 2 established weekends in January and you still haven't taken down your holiday decorations, then yeah, I think we're officially to the point where you're just being lazy about it.
You know what? We did a live tree this year, and then the Boy Scouts come and take it away. I know this sounds crazy. Am I the only one that you almost feel sorry for your tree when you just throw it down at the bottom of the driveway?
It's depressing.
You're like, poor tree.
Yeah,
he did a good job for us this year.
I don't get as depressed as I used to about the end of Christmas, but I like just kind of having the slate wiped clean. That's why I like doing the live stream, kicking this off, because it made me forget about the post-holiday depression and all of that.
I told Shannon, though, you tell me if this is weird. She's got, 5 acres in the backyard, including a huge floodplain and a creek and woods and everything. And I'm like, why don't we just take the Christmas tree and leave it back there for squirrels or whatever to live in and burrow in and hang out in? You know what I mean?
You're showing more sympathy for the tree here than the mouse that I killed in my basement.
Well, I mean, they're both of them were disposed and dispatched of heartlessly.
239-1260. A couple of the YouTube comments, this from our pal Jonah in Arizona, about Nate McMillan on Buy It or Bull Bleep. Agreed on all counts. Nate really has been unfairly criticized at times. I think he has some limitations. I haven't always liked his end game decisions. Personnel-wise, I think he's gotten better because if I remember right, early in his career, he would ride with the bench far too long before putting the starters back in. And that would cost them games at times. But again, I'm just kind of nitpicking. I think you could do a lot worse than Nate McMillan. Nate McMillan has had a career of being a perfectly fine NBA head coach. Nothing more, nothing less. And I think he's really, if we're assigning credit for where the Pacers are, the lion's share of the credit goes to Kevin Pritchard because he did an unbelievable job not only remaking this team once, but remaking it twice.
Right.
And he's had to do that on the fly in the last 3 years, and he's done a phenomenal job of there's been no dip. They've essentially been able to maintain this winning status, where I would, of course, like to see them take another step and win a playoff series. But all in all, adding up the context of the situation, I think he's done an excellent job.
You and I are going to have conflicting opinions about the next story you have in the show, Derek.
Oh, I don't think so. If you have a conflicting opinion against this, you're wrong.
I'll give you a little more insight into it. How's that?
Something is dying that should have been killed off a long time ago.
And it kind of was. That's what I don't.
And
that's what I'm confused by.
I am celebrating the death of this horrible thing. Jake is mourning the loss of this.
I'm not
horrible
mourning
thing.
it. I'm just curious
Yes, you
why
are.
people think it's just now dying. It's been going for a
You're
while.
a traditionalist, so I knew that you would mourn the loss of this horrific thing. We'll tell you exactly what that is when we return. It's Query and Schultz, Fox Sports 1260 and live on YouTube at youtube.com/Query and Schultz.
Minds. You're listening to Query and Schultz on Fox Sports 1260 Indy Sports Station.
There are certain things, Derek, admittedly, that take place. Do you ever have this happen to you where something's in the news and you're like, wait a minute, didn't we already know this? Hasn't this been going on for a while? And you're kind of surprised that it's news to other people because you kind of assumed that it was common knowledge. Does that ever happen to you on anything?
Yeah, there are some. Every once in a while, I get surprised, but a lot of it is like Connecticut stuff that I didn't know people in Indiana didn't know about. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of regional stuff that you assume everyone knows about, but they don't.
Okay.
Like, I was shocked that people didn't know what Jimmy's were until, obviously, now Jimmy's is a household thing here because we've been able to spread that.
Now, give me the story that has you doing backflips, and then I'll tell you why, to me, I was like, really?
The troughs, reportedly, I don't want to put the cart too much ahead of the horse, but the troughs at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway are very likely going to be removed.
Now, for those that are unfamiliar, and there's an evolution of the troughs. At one time, if I'm not mistaken, the troughs were like the porcelain ones, and then those were replaced by the metal that just looks like wider versions of a gutter that run along inside the bathrooms. But here's, to me, Derek, let me tell you the two things here that I know, and the one thing that where I was surprised by this. I know that when Roger Penske, when it was announced that he was taking over the Speedway, he went and walked like every inch of the track. And I was told some of the observations he had and some of the changes that could come, some of which are not even consequential enough to the average fan to repeat on the air. But the two things that I was told, number one, that when he went into the bathrooms, that he was surprised at some of the men's, and I would assume women's, I haven't been in the women's, but some of the men's rooms, he was surprised that the cement walls were not painted. And he's like, why have we not painted these? And he was told the price of how much the paint cost, because you're talking 2.5 miles of paint, basically. And in addition to that, the fact that they knew that putting fresh paint inside a bathroom at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is basically like giving an empty canvas to an art studio, right? And that they would have to repaint it every year. And Penske allegedly said, okay, I mean, that's fine. That's one of the things we're going to have to do. So the cement walls or the cinder block walls in the inside of the bathrooms, I believe all will be painted. But I noticed maybe even 2 years ago, Derek, when you first walk into the Speedway and you go into any of the men's rooms along the main straight on the outside of the track, so not the Tower Terrace, but those that are underneath the paddock and those that are underneath, I guess it would be the Southwest Vista, etc., have urinals. They don't have troughs. So the troughs are only in certain areas, most of which are like in the backstretch or maybe in the infield. But this narrative that every men's restroom has troughs, I realize we're doing bathroom talk here, which is a little insipid, but the narrative that every single men's restroom had troughs is not accurate. It hasn't been accurate for a couple of years. I mean, I was like, yeah, they've now the one drawback of this that people need to brace themselves for. There are 200 and, on race day itself, we can say 250. If you include all the seating, plus people in the infield, plus workers, plus participants, 250 is a fair number on average. The advantage of the troughs is exactly that. you didn't get a lot of lines going. Let's put it that way. You're sardining people in to use the restroom. I know that, but hey, it was efficient. You narrow that down to like 15 urinals, and you're going to have lines going towards the golf course for what it's worth. So just be aware of that, Derek. Especially for you when you got to get up there and there's pressure on you and people want you in and out. It's going to be tough. You'll be waiting in line all that time, then you get up there and people want that spot.
Happily,
and you're going to have to sit there and all the pressure's on you. That's rough.
Happily, we'll wait. It'll be better to be able to use the restroom than not be able to use the restroom.
Okay. Now, the other thing.
Let me see if I'm going to see if we can move that camera during the timeout. Because
keep in mind, Derek.
We can't even see anything right now.
Keep in mind that. Well, here's what we do. You ready?
The sun's right in it.
Watch this. I can't see nothing. Watch this. If we put my hat over it, see now.
No, don't cover it up because I can't see anything.
Yeah, Brandon wants to be able to see. If we do that the right way.
You somehow made it worse now?
Okay.
Because now all I can see is the brim of your hat.
Well, anyway.
It's just.
For those that are curious, by the way, it's my understanding that lights are still in the discussion, but not on the front burner. For those that are curious about that, lights at the Speedway, not.
What are we talking about cost-wise for those? Have you talked to somebody who can really give a good estimate on how much that would cost to light that whole place? It's got to be millions and millions and millions of dollars.
I was told at one time, and I can't remember. It was millions, yes. But there are a number of factors that go into that I think has moved that a little bit off of the front burner, as I understand it. There was a time, Derek, just so you know, that the men's restrooms at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, when you walked into them, you had the troughs like along one wall, and then one of the back walls was just wooden benches with circular holes like every 8 feet, and it was basically latrines, right? Mm-hmm. They eventually replaced that with actual stalls, but they didn't have doors on them. So, count your blessings here.
Wait, the stalls like where you go number 2 did not have doors?
That is correct, yes. But before that, it was just a bench along the back part of the...
I'm aware of the bench.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to...
Out in turn 3.
I don't want to relive the bench. I'm not interested in talking about the bench.
Okay.
The bench can stay buried and dead where it is.
Okay.
I was not aware of the fact that there were... The whole point of a stall is for it to be a stall.
No, they're dividers.
So
there's just no door.
These were half-completed stalls? Is that
they
what
just
you're
didn't have a
trying to
door
say?
on them. I don't know if the women's restroom do or not. I've never been in there.
What's the point of having a stall if it has no door? It's like a car with no wheels.
Well,
what the hell do you do with it?
You turn the corner and somebody's in there. Oh, sorry. You go on about.
No, I don't want. If I'm sitting there, Jake, I don't want people to.
You just say, "Hey,
I don't want to interact.
Occupado." They come up, occupado, and they go on.
Well, the door is supposed to signify.
There's a rite of passage
occupado.
about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway restrooms. It's a rite of passage.
It's not
growing
a rite
up in this
of
town.
passage.
It's a rite of passage.
No,
now, can I also tell you? You know about my one piece of great Speedway memorabilia, correct?
It's a folding chair, isn't it?
I think I'm now at liberty to admit this publicly.
Didn't you have some folding chair from like 19?
Well, they gave me one of the green chairs that sat in turn 1 when they replaced those, the temporary seating green chairs that sat from like 1958 to 2015 or something. They gave me one of those. But I believe I probably have told this story before. I think I'm in the clear to tell it now because I've kind of cleared it with people at the Speedway. And it starts out innocent enough. I'm sure I've told this on the air, right?
I don't think so.
If you're ever at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, on the backside of the Tower Terrace, so like where Victory Lane is, just to the north of that, and the underside of the grandstands are the local television editing rooms. Channel 8 and Channel 59 share a suite. Channel 6 is off to, or not share a suite, but they're in one little hallway. Channel 6 is off kind of to the left, and then Channel 13. And that's where we have, or had, I should say, editing equipment for live shots, packages, stories, etc. And sometime in the early to mid-2000s, after the Brickyard, which of course at that time was the last event of the year at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, all of us in local television, it was like 7 o'clock at night. We're in editing for our 11 o'clock shows and whatever else, and just finished the 6 o'clock live shots. And a yellow shirt popped his head in and said, hey, guys, just a reminder, this equipment all has to be out of here by midnight tonight. And we're like, well, that's like our engineers that come in and tear that stuff down. But I mean, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of television equipment. And I mean,
Sure.
It takes weeks to set up. And we're like, well, that's not us that does that. But I'm pretty sure they come out tomorrow and start breaking down the equipment. And the guy's like, well, it's all got to be out tonight because starting tomorrow at 8 a.m., this whole thing's coming down. We're like, what are you talking about? And they said the Tower Terrace, they're rebuilding it. They're redoing everything. So they're raising this in the morning and putting in a whole new section. And we're like, wait a minute. So you're saying that like everything here is gone? The guy's like, all of it's gone. Everything's getting torn down. So we're like, so what does that mean for the signage and things like that? It's all going. It's all gone. Take whatever you want. And I'm not going to say any names, but myself, one other individual that I worked with, two individuals from a different television station, one of which is pretty prominent. We went out with
first.
We went out with monkey wrenches.
We all know that it's first.
I mean, we were hanging off signs, taking stuff down.
Of course, yeah.
The wing and wheel logo from the old Victory Circle, all of it, turning it into souvenirs. And like nobody was saying a word because the yellow shirts are just like, yeah, I mean, take whatever you want. Like have at. So literally, I mean, so I have a metal, it's got to be 3 feet high by 5 feet wide on steel arms that extends out, one of the original metal signs that just says gentleman's restroom with the wing and wheel. And I was told, I mean, it had been over the restroom under the Tower Terrace since like 1920.
Wow.
And so I took that. Somebody else, I'm not saying any names, took the women's restroom sign. Somebody took the wing and wheel logo from Victory Circle, which was gold. I mean, not actual gold, but gold color. And somebody took like the Victory Circle sign. And among other things. And that night, actually the next night at like 12:30 at night, one of my coworkers who had the women's restroom sign was so paranoid over it that he drove to 16th and Georgetown and leaned it up against the administration building front door and left it and took off. I kept the men's restroom sign. And like 3 days later, we got an email saying, were you guys told that this was coming down? I'm like, yeah. And they said, well, that's totally inaccurate. That's not accurate at all. They didn't ask for anything back, though. So I held on to the sign. And then
They were probably going to update that stuff anyway.
a couple of years ago, I admitted to the Speedway that I had the sign, and they basically were like, hey, that's a sweet souvenir, because they've redone it all since. So I still have it. If anybody, and nobody's ever done so, there's never been anyone inside my residence in 15 years. But if you ever come and you want to use the restroom, I just say, well, it's underneath the sign that says Gentleman Restroom, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That's where the bathroom is.
Yeah, that's surprising. No one has been in the two-bedroom apartment where you live alone
Right.
for the last 15 years?
Nobody's come over to see the Charles Manson autograph letter. Nobody's come over to see the Neil Armstrong signed newspaper. Bums me out.
And your California King
The other
mattress,
people, by the way, FYI,
your jar of mustard in the fridge.
everyone else kept their souvenirs as well. Just an FYI.
Everyone had that one friend that would always panic whenever you did something, right?
Oh, yeah,
Or
of course.
The panicky, paranoid
right.
friend. 239-1260. When we return, we'll talk Pacers. Jeremiah Johnson is going to join us. Sidelines for FS Indiana. They've got a big one tonight against the Heat, and we'll discuss it next. It's Corey and Schultz. Jake, we've been together for 9 years, so I thought you would know
We've
by
worked
now
together.
what
We haven't been together. We've
my
worked together.
nonverbal cues were on this show.
I didn't know we had Jeremiah coming up. The other day, I
You have
actually
show notes right in front of you.
I asked a Twitter question the other day that said, tell me a teacher that made an impact and a difference on you growing up. And one of the responses came from Peru, Indiana, the circus capital of the world, Derek, so I know you like Peru, Indiana, that said Mr. Johnson was the best teacher that this individual had. And then actually said, by the way, that happens to be the father of our next guest who joins us on the Omnisource guest line. We're talking about the Pacers broadcast sideline reporter Jeremiah Johnson, who joins us on the program. Jeremiah, I don't know if you saw that tweet or not, but what subject did your dad teach and at what grade?
high school mathematics, calculus, high-level algebra, geometry, Peru High School. Yep. And I saw the tweet, and I appreciated the response, and I will say that my dad appreciated it as well. So it was great that you're shining a spotlight on some of the educators around the state of Indiana, and I was touched to be able to see that the other night.
Were you a good math student?
Yeah, not too shabby. Better at math then, I think, than I am now. Sometimes live on the postgame show, I'm trying to add up bench scoring or rebound differential, and if it's not right in front of me, sometimes I catch myself saying, wish my dad was right here, because he was a human calculator. He could just do it like that. And sometimes now people rely on their phones too much to do math for them.
Yeah, I mean, algebra and calculus, to me, those should have been actually under the category of foreign language in high school. It was not a strong suit. There's something about the Bulls and the Pacers in terms of return games, and we're not talking about Michael Jordan in retirement, but Victor Oladipo. Am I correct, though, Jeremiah Johnson, in saying that while January 29th is kind of the target date or the announced date for Victor Oladipo's return, that still is a flexible date? Is that correct?
Well, we'll know a little bit more from Nate McMillan, because at this point we've just heard from Victor, but I know he spoke to Shams and then also sent a message through the Pacers social media channel. So there has not been a specific press release announcement from the team, and I do look forward to kind of hearing what Nate McMillan has to say. He had a target date that he mentioned, I think, or at least his people mentioned to Woj, Christmas Day, and after that I asked Nate McMillan, and he said we don't really have a timeline yet. And, it makes sense for the team to be a little cautious and not to want to put a date out there in case there is a setback. But after, Nate said there was no timeline, he kind of clarified that again by saying the good news is there have not been any setbacks. So I do think that Victor maybe kind of initiated this a little bit, but I think they've been talking with the team this entire time, and it's kind of one of these decisions that involves a lot of different people. And to me, there's nothing wrong with having people get excited about it, but I don't know that, right now they're kind of locked into that because of what Victor has said and Victor only, and we'll see what Nate has to say later tonight.
What do you anticipate, Jeremiah, in terms of the time frame before, and it maybe it's not this year, before we see Victor Oladipo like in a starting role and getting, say, 30-plus minutes?
Definitely not on the first night. I mean, I do think that when he comes back, and I think Nate has even been asked that if he would come off the bench when he returns, and I think he said, he's a starter, but it's not one of those things where he'll play as many minutes as necessary to win a game. I would assume when he comes back, he would be on a little bit of a minutes restriction, just my observation, and then maybe back-to-backs would be, something you'd have to, decide when the time comes whether it's something you'd want to do. I think the date that Victor has said he's coming back, there's not another back-to-back, I think, for a couple of weeks, so you have some time to figure that out. This injury is such that there are not many people that have had that injury, especially someone at the age that he is that relies on kind of explosiveness and athleticism. So it's really impossible to say he's going to come back on January 29th, and by March 13th, he's going to be 100% the Victor of old. That being said, I do think that, if they were extra cautious, if maybe he could have played in the middle of December and he's coming back at the end of January, one of the reasons would be that he can be closer to the Victor that he knows he needs to be, that he relies upon. And it's not the same situation as when Paul George came back and played those last 6 games, and you knew what you were getting was, 70% of what Paul George could be, but you just wanted him to get that experience. I think it was important for Victor to come back and be as close to the Victor of old as he was, because, for one, they need him to be 100% to be able to help this team, and that's kind of his game. His game is being able to go in and dunk and be explosive on defense. And if he's not that, then I think it's problematic for him mentally, and then that affects him physically.
We're joined by Jeremiah Johnson of FS Indiana. I know it's just January, JJ, but tonight's game against Miami, or really any of these games, now that we've seen a separation of the top 6 in the East, so Miami, Milwaukee, Philly, Boston, Toronto, even though we're not even at the halfway point of the season, how important are these games, do you believe, going to pay at the end of the year because of how tightly bunched these 6 teams are? Maybe you take Milwaukee out of that because they've created a little bit of space. But am I right in saying that, heck, the difference between the 4 seed and the 5 seed and hosting a first-round series could be some of these games?
Absolutely. I do think Milwaukee has separated themselves a little bit, and right now the Pacers are 8.5 games behind Milwaukee, but just 3.5 games behind Miami. And if you'd have won that game in Miami at the end of December, if you'd have basically grabbed one extra defensive rebound, think where you would be. And I think the last 2 years are proof you have to take these games seriously, because despite 48 wins each of the last 2 seasons, the goal was a home court advantage in the first-round series. and you basically finished a game or two short. And you could say it's a game against Cleveland last year or a game against, Charlotte this year that could come back to haunt you. But the games that are head-to-head, tiebreaker situations and implications go into things. And last year, the Pacers had that chance against Boston at the end of the season to have the home court advantage, and they didn't take advantage of it. And now in January that this could help you, and you have a couple of games yet remaining against Miami that, hopefully you'd have Victor Oladipo back for those games, but you need to even up this season series. And so that's one thing that has changed. A couple of years ago, people would ask Nate McMillan about a game or a matchup, and he would kind of give it the 1 of 82. And while he still says that, he also has the standings board up in the St. Vincent Center, and he does remind his guys, this game is big. They're right ahead of you in the standings, and the players say those things to me. So they're kind of like fans in that they understand this game is big. The key is you can't let down for the other game. So they'll play hard tonight, and that game at Miami was maybe the best game I'd seen all season in terms of two teams fighting and giving it their all on every single possession. So I expect the same tonight.
Jeremiah, when you look once Victor Oladipo comes back, and let's assume that he comes back and is infiltrated into the offense, that's going to mean minutes taking away from someone, and then, of course, you kind of tighten your rotation as the year goes on. I've asked this question to others before. I'm curious your answer on it. Once Oladipo's getting more minutes and that rotation is shortened, who loses minutes that gets kind of pushed out a little bit?
Well, I think that initially the rotation will expand. Now, Nate McMillan likes to play a 9 or a 9.5 man rotation, but I could really see, especially with Victor maybe not playing as many minutes in each game, I could see him going to 10 and maybe even in a certain situation, as crazy as this sounds, maybe 11 in February and early March. And then it's almost a little bit of an opportunity for him to test rotations and for guys to prove themselves, to prove that they need to continue to be on the court. I will say that, Edmund Sumner would be the initial one that is getting some playing time now, that if everyone is healthy, maybe he is the odd man out. But you look at the backcourt, Jeremy Lamb, I think, when he signed in the offseason, he kind of understood that he would start until Victor Oladipo came back, and then he would be, off the bench. But I think he'll still get heavy minutes. Well, then if he goes at the two guard, then you basically, if everyone is healthy, and that's a big qualifier because there have been other injuries to guys like Malcolm Brogdon and other players up to this point, you've got Aaron Holiday and T.J. McConnell, and right now I have a hard time seeing either one of them out of the rotation because they've been so important for the different things that they do. So I think it's initially you expand the rotation, you let everybody play a little bit, and then you don't make your decision until you've had a chance to kind of see how those groups work together. But the thing I'll say is the second unit has been so good, you don't want to shake that up too much. And I say that second unit with Sabonis because he's been running with the other four backups or the reserve players, and that's been an advantage. And, 4 out of every 5 games, it seems like.
The observation I made yesterday, Jeremiah, and I want you to feel free to disagree with it or tell me if you think it's accurate. I mean, you see every possession. Aaron Holiday has really flourished this year in terms of his ability to score for Indiana. But to me, that happens a lot of times when he's on the floor with T.J. McConnell running things and getting people in position. And Aaron Holiday has been able to really blossom, especially with McConnell. And so, therefore, it makes it difficult for Nate McMillan. If you're going to take minutes away from, say, a McConnell, then you've got to see how Holiday responds to that because those two play very well off of one another when they're on the floor together. Fact or fiction?
I think you've got it. And, to answer the previous question that you asked, I guess despite Aaron Holiday starting a lot of games and playing so well, there could be a situation where in the playoffs, if the rotation is a little bit shorter and it's a trust factor, he could maybe lose out on some playing time, but he also could be the guy that maybe doesn't play in the first half, and then you put him in if you need to spark offensively in the fourth quarter. Because I do think the coaching staff has done a really good job in finding and seeing what Aaron Holiday does well. And I asked Chad Buchanan last week if what they're seeing from Aaron Holiday is what they expected when they drafted him. And he gave credit to the coaching staff because I think they thought they were maybe drafting someone that could be a point guard of the future kind of player. And I think he really is a two guard. He's maybe a little undersized, and that could be an issue moving forward depending upon the point guard that he is starting next to. But he just seems to be such a scorer and not really a pass-first kind of player. He's good to have on the court in the fourth quarter. We've seen some games this year where he, felt no pressure late in the game, and he had the confidence to drive in and to take a big shot. But it sometimes is not a pure point guard and maybe doesn't get the other guys involved as well as a guy like T.J. McConnell. And we saw it in Charlotte. Coach left T.J. McConnell on the court late into the fourth quarter because they needed to get that offense moving and generate some productivity.
JJ, we have and I know you're aware of this because you're a listener to the show, we have a hugely popular segment called Buy It or Bull Bleep that we do every Wednesday.
Nobody listens to it.
And one of our Buy It or Bull Bleep statements was Nate McMillan should get more credit for the Pacers' success this year. Buy it or Bull Bleep. And I'll actually just present that to you. Do you buy that McMillan maybe is the guy that gets kind of forgotten about in when we're assigning credit to this Pacers, what a lot of people would say is a surprising start? But I think here in Indianapolis, we were confident that this was around the Pacers team that we would be able to see this season.
First things first, big fan, and I'm such a fan that sometimes I'll give you guys credit because you do the Buy It or Bull Bleep segment a second time, and Jake acts like he's never heard the question the first time. Is that correct, or are you replaying it?
He is good at that.
I try.
I think he's mostly ignoring me the first time.
Credit. We do the same thing, an interview that airs at 6:35 on Pacers Live pregame might air again later in the broadcast because we know not everybody is tuned in 45 minutes before a game. But great job on that. And I was listening actually to your segment on the way to the Fieldhouse today, and I think it's interesting because sometimes Nate McMillan gets more credit nationally than he does locally, and maybe that's just from me kind of following a lot of fans on Twitter and kind of seeing after a loss the frustration. It's maybe what we call the vocal minority. But I don't think he gets enough credit because any other team that loses its best player for basically an entire calendar year, I don't think they're able to do what this team has been able to do. And then to have basically for the second time in 3 seasons an entirely remade roster where you've got the same coaching staff and you have similar philosophies, but you have to tell all of these different players, this is how we play defense. This is what we do in Indiana. This is kind of our offensive philosophy. And to see them start so well, I just think anytime that in December and January, nationally, people can say, wow, the Pacers, they're a surprise team again, you've got to give the coaching staff some credit for that. I understand the frustrations that some fans have, and you mentioned it, I think, as you and Jake were talking earlier today. But I think that, maybe not coach of the year, like sometimes people like nationally want to say, oh, look at the Pacers, Nate McMillan should be the coach of the year, but he definitely needs to be given some consideration. And I do think his after timeout plays, especially in the middle of games, sometimes don't just focus on what happens with 2 minutes to play, but when they call a timeout or they come out of a timeout at the end of a quarter, how many times do they diagram a play? I mean, Doug McDermott is almost open every time to start a fourth quarter, and that's because they're diagramming something for him, and he's executing.
All right, Jeremiah, I've got another one for you. The guy to me that is a great enigma, because at times I'm going to describe a Pacer player, and then I want Jeremiah Johnson to guess which player I'm describing, okay? At times this player, when given opportunity, has shown an ability to score the ball and, in addition, to add some rebounding prowess. Other times this player goes out and is invisible, and now, for whatever reason, has completely fallen out of rotation where I wonder when and where he's going to see minutes again. Who am I talking about?
Well, if he's fallen out of the rotation, I guess you're talking about TJ Leaf.
Correct. What now? Are we going to see, or what opportunities are going to have to present themselves for TJ Leaf to get back out on the floor?
Well, I mean, that's a tough one because, honestly, the second unit, I think, really kind of found its stride a little bit when Justin Holiday was playing the 4. Now, you could argue you sometimes will need some extra rebounding and someone to play the backup 4 position, especially if Sabonis and Miles Turner are in foul trouble. Now, those guys are pretty much playing the 5 or Miles starting as the 4. But I don't feel like the way they're playing right now and the cohesion that they have with the second unit that there are a lot of opportunities. I even wonder if they had an injury or they needed someone else to rebound, as you say, or provide some defensive intensity, it might be Jakar Sampson, because I do think he provides even a little bit more experience in rebounding. And I guess the thing that I'll say about TJ is I feel like he should be, in this point, maybe a little bit better of a shooter. I mean, you draft him out of UCLA, you thought he was kind of a stretch 4 that could really knock down threes, and it's tough in the limited playing time sometimes to get in and you play 4 minutes and you're expected when you're wide open to knock down a shot, but he's just not been the threat from outside. And if he's not hitting the three-point shot, defense is one of those things he has to be just okay at because he's not going to be an excellent defender. Now, when he played what we call the stretch 5 a couple of times this year when there were injuries, he did have big rebounding nights. And there's, the one game specifically, I don't remember the numbers, but it was something like 15 and 16, or it was a stat line where you were just wow, look at the game that TJ Leaf had. But then the game right after that, he was kind of the enigma that you referenced. So with everyone coming back to health and more players getting healthy that have contributed, it does feel like that, at least for the remainder of this season, it's not in the cards for TJ, but they did extend his deal into next year. So they haven't given up on him, and maybe there will be a time. And you do have to understand his age. I mean, he could still be a senior at UCLA. Did he come out too early? Maybe. But if he's still at UCLA and he's knocking down three-pointers and he's playing great in college basketball and you start his NBA clock next year, I wonder how he could be. So that's where I caution people of giving up on him too early.
And, hey, man, he got that first-round money, right? Guaranteed deal. So I'm with you that I think a lot of these guys come out too early, but then when you look at it financially, it makes a lot of sense if you could lock yourself into being a first-round pick.
It's like when we decided to do this show and we're on FM, you know what I mean? And then once you're AM only, it's like back in college. You got to take it while you can,
which
right?
more than enough is going to make.
What do we have? What do we have watching on YouTube? 42 people.
But you're on YouTube now.
Yes, we have
a big deal.
81,000 that are watching right now.
Okay, let's take every possible way that people can listen that actually financially incentivizes us and move them over to YouTube where we get nothing. That's a great idea
for you. Pacers and Heat pregame.
My question is, I haven't tuned into you guys on YouTube yet, but when you have a guest on, such as myself, and you're asking me a question and I'm talking, do I just get a shot of you guys nodding in agreement? Or
yeah, it's ridiculous. We should have a graphic that says on the phone, Jeremiah Johnson, right?
We will have that.
Jeremiah.
But then you have to hire a producer.
Derek, or Jeremiah, let me ask you something.
We will have that.
Let me ask you something, Jeremiah. You worked in television, right?
Correct.
You work in television now. You work in
still
local
do, actually, yeah.
you worked in local television. Now you work in regional/national television, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, along the way, you started in Terre Haute, right?
Actually, my first job was in Hazard, Kentucky.
Okay. Hazard,
So
Kentucky.
even smaller than Terre Haute.
Okay. Well, you're familiar, obviously, with the Terre Haute market. Basically, what we're doing here is like early morning Brazil farm reports. That's the equivalent of the television work we're talking about here. You know what I mean?
It's got no chance if you're going to cut our legs off before we can
just
run.
telling you.
Here, it's got
You
no
might
chance.
say that, but when my son gets home from school, one of the first things he does is he checks YouTube, and he has his own YouTube channel, and he may be more likely to find you on YouTube if you could start trending than maybe he would be on 1260
This is
AM.
great.
So
We're rivaling.
There's to what Derek is trying to do.
We're rivaling South Korean boy bands on YouTube channels.
JJ,
Great.
you get the show. You get the show. Pacers and Heat pregame 6:30 FS Indiana. You can follow Jeremiah
Not
JJ
on YouTube.
Fox Sports Indiana on Twitter. Thanks so much, my man. Always appreciate it.
I look forward to coming back when the graphic comes on YouTube when I'm on. And
That's
I'll be
right.
sure to
Someday.
send the link to this to my son when he's checking his trick shot video channel.
Thanks so much, Jeremiah.
The best part would be if we can put the
Okay.
graphic over the part where it tells you how many people are viewing. That way no one knows.
Well, again,
what do we have? 42?
No, it says 85, but if and I'm still kind of new to this, if I understand it correctly, that's 85 times it's measured one for every 1,000 people that's watching.
Yeah, okay.
Or is
Just
it 100 people that's watching?
telling yourself
no,
that.
so it's 8,500 that are watching.
It's a
right
1-to-1 ratio.
now. No, I don't think that's accurate.
By the way, we have big-time breaking news here from Keystone Sports Review. Number one, Brandon has ordered his pizza,
oh, boy.
which looks actually fantastic. Pizza's, by the way, half off, dine-in only between now and 7 o'clock. And also big-time news, Derek, Crispy not able to make it.
Wow, what a shock.
Yep, just text me. Not able to make it. He
Keep it on.
He found out they were charging for bills and decided not to come.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Oh, poor Crispy. We're going to beat him up for that forever. We'll come back from Keystone Sports Review here in just a minute and talk a little bit Pacers Heat. Also, Raphael Esparza, mybookie.lv, slated to join us as well. It's Corey and Schultz, Fox Sports 1260.
Hey kids, shake and loose together. Spotlight hitting something that you know to change the weather. But a California cough tonight, so stick around. Betty in the dress. Out there in the wonderful. Oh man, she's a red queen. She's got electric boots. I'm all house food. And now I read it in a magazine. Oh, Betty and the Jets.
Query and Schultz, brought to you by Dave and Buster's. Eat, drink, play.
The conversation continues 24/7 on Twitter at jQuery and at Schultz975. This is Query and Schultz on Fox Sports 1260 Indy Sports Station.
Now, Derek, right on cue, we're at liberty to say that your folks are here, right?
Yeah, they're retired, so they don't have anybody to.
Your dad, I noticed right on cue, the
Report
first thing
to.
he said, somebody went up and said hi. You know the first thing he said to him?
Hope Santa Claus is good to you.
Hope Santa was good to you.
Yeah,
Yep,
that usually
that's right.
goes through about up until my birthday or so. So February 27th, my dad will say.
Well, you start talking about your birthday in a week.
That is
so,
true. That is coming
I
up.
mean,
We are
what
coming
the
up
hell?
on my birthday vicinity, yeah. But my dad will say, hope Santa Claus is good to you. Usually until, like, right after Valentine's Day. And that's that's around when the cutoff is
Okay.
for that. Don't get mad, but we have to do that thing where we catch up. We went long with JJ, and we're already running one behind. So we got to do a quick break here. We'll come right back. Raphael Esparza will talk lines. Indiana's got a 13.5-point spread tonight against Northwestern. Pacers are close to a pick-em against Miami tonight. We'll talk about that. We'll talk college national championship and more with Raphael Esparza when we return. It's Query and Schultz live from KSR and on YouTube, youtube.com/Query and Schultz.
Yeah, you got satin shoes.
Query and Schultz, brought to you by Dave and Buster's. Eat, drink, play.
They're back from ignoring each other the entire break. You're listening to Query and Schultz on Fox Sports 1260 Indy Sports Station.
Welcome back to the show. Rolling along on a Hump Day Wednesday. Query and Schultz, first remote of 2020. Here on Fox Sports 1260. Thanks to our on-site engineer, Eddie Hazel. He always does a great job not only getting our audio signal on the air, but also has done a great job setting up this YouTube stream for us so people can really see not only, us interact during the show, Jake, just two really good buddies talking sports, but also we've talked a lot about, how we stay in shape and how we're pretty handsome, and now you can confirm that via the YouTube stream. So you go to youtube.com/Query and Schultz and you can see. That we're not making it up. We're not lying.
That's right.
We're both two very handsome guys. Another handsome guy is Raphael Esparza. He joins us now. He's our Vegas go-to guy, mybookie.lv. And he joins us on the Omnisource guest line. Omnisource, the best in metals recycling. I wanted to start NFL, Raphael, even though we got a lot to get to, including the College Football National Championship game. I wasn't one of the people that thought Tennessee was going to go to New England and won, but I understand that a lot of people were on the Titans, and I want to say maybe it was 3.5 or 4.5. Were you surprised, though, that they came through?
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit shocking. We needed that, so that was a good outcome for us. But, yeah, a little shocking that they came through. I think one of the biggest let's just face it was a great weekend for us when the Saints went down. Tons of teasers and parlays went down. But I would say the Tennessee game was probably a little bit overshadowed with the Saints losing. Because I think if the Saints would have won, I think we would be talking about New England's done, Tom Brady, and not even mentioning Tennessee. But I think that Saints loss probably helped New England.
What games, when you look at it, Raphael Esparza, this weekend, we'll begin with NFL playoffs, obviously. What game is you think the safest play, and which one would you avoid?
I would probably avoid the Minnesota-San Francisco game. Granted, the number is a little bit high, I think. I think it's a great number for Vikings. I thought this number should be around 6, 5.5 maybe. So there is some value on the Vikings. I like Green Bay. It's going to be cold. I know Seattle's just been playing lights out on the road, but Green Bay rested. I think Aaron Rodgers at Lambeau Field, I think, takes care of business.
Of all of the heavy underdogs, and there are a lot of heavy underdogs. I mean, 3 of the 4 games are 7+. The 2 AFC games are 9+. Who do you think has the best shot to pull off the upset, ditto what the Vikings did?
I'm going to say Tennessee, because if Tennessee keeps Lamar on the sidelines looking at the tablet and maybe placing some bets on the British Academy Award bets that I'm doing right now, that's going to be the way to beat Baltimore, because I think Tennessee's going to run. This game might be an hour and a half long. I mean, it's an 8:15 game Eastern Standard Time. This game might be over by 10 because it's just going to be run. I think Baltimore might have the biggest bullseye just because of the way Tennessee is going to approach it.
Raphael, where do things stand right now in terms of both the line and the over-under for the LSU-Clemson National Championship game?
Well, we're just begging for Clemson money. We're hoping Clemson money comes soon because we're going to have to move it to 6.5 pretty soon. It's around 5.5, 6. The total is climbing up a little bit. It's now 69.5. I would not be shocked if the number is 6, 6.5, and a total of 70 by kickoff. It's going to be very interesting because right now about 85% of tickets still coming in on LSU.
God, really? Because I feel like in that case, is a Clemson money line play? I'm not talking like a substantial play, but is a small Clemson money line play maybe worth it if you're convinced that Clemson is going to not only cover but win?
Well, maybe I'll go 2 for 2 because last week we talked about the money line play, and I said I'm not a money line bettor, and that team we talked about won outright. So I'm going to say the same thing. Yeah, I think Clemson. I'm not going to take it. If this moves to 6, 6.5, I can guarantee you I'm taking Clemson because I still think we're going to get the double bird on stage when they're hosting up the trophy, and another Louisiana team goes down on the center stage at the Dome.
Man, I would be Raphael. I'll tell you what. If you were going on reverse psychology by bad-mouthing Clemson all year, and that's what lifts them to the national championship, then I'll personally fly out to Vegas to write your scripts to badmouth them again next year all season long.
Well, I want to come there. You don't have to fly out to Vegas. I'm going to go out to Indianapolis if I can be on YouTube with you guys.
That's right.
We can make that happen for you. I got no problem with that. Any basketball plays that you like moving forward here? Anything NBA, college hoops pique your interest coming up here in the next couple days?
Keep an eye out for some NBA trades. There's some big names I think that could be moved. Kuzma, Drummond in Detroit. There's going to be some interesting stuff that can happen tonight. There's some really good Big Ten matchups. Really great game last night in the Big Ten. I think IU blows out Northwestern today, but I'm really excited to watch Illinois, Wisconsin. Badgers, four home games, all wins by double digits.
Hey, Raphael, what in college basketball? Give me the team that is the biggest enigma, the one that people probably should just avoid because they're totally up and down and it's completely unpredictable what they're going to do for you.
I'm not going to say up and down, but covering is very hard. The Gonzaga is always a team people love to bet, and their numbers are really high, but they never cover those big numbers, and we cash on them week after week after week because they'll be playing Portland minus 24 and they'll win by 17. So stay away from those big games from Gonzaga because, yes, they do win, but they don't cover.
At VSI Doc Sports on Twitter, mybookie.lv for all the latest and greatest. Thanks so much, Raphael. Happy New Year. We'll do it again next week.
Take it easy, guys. Have a fantastic weekend.
It's our pal, Raphael Esparza. I'll tell you what, Jake, and I'm not just saying this because I'm trying to, bust chops because I know you're all on edge about this Clemson game.
No, I think LSU's going to win.
LSU a 7-point favorite, though?
Derek, I think LSU look.
I think we are. Look, LSU might win, and LSU maybe is the best team in the country. They certainly have the best resume.
No question.
They have 50 times the resume that Clemson does. I think the public is grossly overreacting to what LSU did to Oklahoma as that meaning something. That doesn't mean anything to me. Ohio State or Clemson would have completely trashed Oklahoma as well.
If both teams,
I think people are reading way too much into that game.
If both teams play their absolute best game, then I think it comes down to basically one possession and whichever one does not make a turnover. But I think if both of them are playing their best game, LSU is the slightly better team. Now, what Clemson has been able to do really well is in moments where teams make mistakes, hone in and not do that. Say what you want about the Ross play or the target, whatever. In the Ohio State game, with 3 minutes to go, it was basically, it was a 1-point game. I think it was 1 point. And Clemson went down and scored on a 4-play, 94-yard drive in 1 minute and 18 seconds, and Ohio State threw an interception. And that was the difference in the game. And in the LSU game, I think it's going to be the same thing. But I also could see LSU is going to score points and score them quickly, Derek. And it really comes down to, can Trevor Lawrence run or ETN run? And is one of the two not going to is one of the two going to have a turnover? I think it's going to be that close. I think LSU is really good.
I think it was two things for Clemson. One, they didn't make really any mistakes after the first couple of minutes where they were, I think, a little bit shell-shocked. And two, and sometimes this is just what happens, it's a single elimination playoff. Sometimes you just have to catch every break, and they caught every break.
Yeah, they did.
And it is what it is. It doesn't take away from them winning. Sometimes you just have to catch breaks, and they caught breaks. Burrow and the 8 tutties against Oklahoma, it's a very formidable opponent, but I would just be really surprised. This doesn't strike me. This doesn't strike me as a game that's going to be like a 14-point win or an easy win for either team. To me, this looks like a heavyweight fight.
What's interesting to me, or will be interesting, I should say, Joe Burrow on the year, 55 touchdowns, 6 picks. Fields had only thrown, 1 interception all season?
I think that's right.
And he threw 3 against Clemson, 1 was overturned, so 2 picks. I think it's entirely possible that, I shouldn't say that. I would like to see Clemson's defense duplicate that feat. I'm not saying they can. LSU's got elite receivers. I mean, it'll be a great game. It'll be a great game.
Where are you watching it? By yourself?
I'll watch the second half by myself because they are 6-0 in postseason games when I've done that.
Are you less stressed out about this game because you don't know anybody that likes LSU?
Actually, my old boss at IMS, Robbie Green, is a huge LSU fan, but totally cool dude.
And does not annoy you about it like the guy in the gym.
Like when Clemson was playing in the national titles the last, he always texts me like, hey, go after him, go get it. Totally cool guy, yeah. And I mean, and when we've talked, he's like, man, I hope they play each other. What a great game that'll be. Yeah, that's all you ask, right? So, yeah, I got no problem with LSU. I've always kind of liked LSU, to be honest with you. Do you remember that movie Indecent Proposal with Woody Harrelson and Demi Moore? Peak Demi Moore.
I know of it.
He wears an LSU sweatshirt through the whole thing, and I thought he was pretty cool in the movie, so I've always kind of liked LSU.
He's like a ghost, right? And she's like a clay person.
No,
she's
that's actually Ghost. That's Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore. You got the wrong movie.
And Whoopi Goldberg is somehow involved.
Yeah, no, that's also Ghost. You've got the wrong movie. Indecent Proposal, Robert Redford comes and thinks Demi Moore's hot. I mean, who can blame him? And offers money for like a weekend.
And he's a baseball star.
No, see, now you're thinking of The Natural. Also Robert Redford. Good.
Okay,
accurate there.
Sometimes I get my music.
No, Roy Hobson was The Natural.
I'm way better music-wise.
No,
Movies,
not at all.
Sometimes
You're
I
a
get my wires
disaster
crossed.
music-wise.
Movies, sometimes I get my wires crossed.
You're a
bit.
disaster
I'll
when
admit,
it comes to music.
I'll admit, it's not as much.
You can't tell the difference between Led Zeppelin and the Bee Gees.
I'm a music expert. I'm just not as much of a movie guy.
Sure. Okay.
We'll re-rack the big headlines of the day. Also coming up, 5 o'clock, Mark Howell is the 2022 Indianapolis College Football Playoff Host Committee Board Chair, and he's going to join
That's
us
a long
to talk
title.
about the city's. Yeah, you're right about that. The city's preparations for college football's biggest game coming up here in 2 years. It's Query and Schultz, live from KSR, Fox Sports 1260, and on YouTube at youtube.com/Query and Schultz.
Hey, Aaron.
Away.
and Schultz, brought to you by Dave and Buster's. Eat, drink, play.
The conversation continues 24/7 on Twitter at jQuery and at Schultz 975. This is Query and Schultz on Fox Sports 1260 Indy Sports Station.
Welcome back to the show, re-racking the big headlines of the day. The biggest headline of all, we have known for a while that Victor Oladipo was going to return around the end of January, early February. Turns out, Jake, now we finally have a return date, June 29th.
You mean January 29th?
Or sorry, yeah, June 29th. God, that would be that'd be a really long wait. January 29th for Victor Oladipo to come back from that ruptured quad. And that is a home game against the Chicago Bulls, correct?
That is against the Bulls, yes.
Okay. So that's good. That's good that we have a date, something to shoot for, something to circle. Unless the Pacers really went in the tank, which doesn't appear like it's going to happen over the next couple of weeks, I think you have to feel pretty good about where they are when they're going to get Oladipo back. Now, the question is, how is Oladipo going to fit with all of these new pieces? Because outside of Turner and Sabonis, he really hasn't played with any of these guys. Lamb, Warren, Brogdon, all of it. It's all going to be very new for him. But he's such a talented player. He's such a hard worker that I'm not going to sweat it. I think everything – there'll be a little bit of a learning curve, but I think everything is going to be hunky-dory.
You know what's interesting is when you look, Derek, at guys that seemingly he would take minutes from, or guys that were brought in and you thought, okay, they're going to fill minutes until Oladipo is healthy. It's hard to find one that has underperformed and therefore you feel okay taking minutes away from them. I mean, Justin Holiday has played really well. TJ McConnell has played really well. Jeremy Lamb has played well for certain and at times really well. TJ Warren has played really well. Where do the minutes come? Brogdon, obviously has been injured, but when he's healthy, he's outstanding. They've got a deep roster.
You make the minutes happen because he's your guy. So Lamb ends up being the backup too, and then Oladipo ends up inserted in the starting lineup, and you roll with the five that you currently have, just making that one change. I mean, I don't think it's rocket science. I think that's exactly what they're going to end up doing. But you're right, Jake. I think this group has found something, and you're worried about upsetting the apple cart. But I've always kind of been hesitant with this whole, does adding a good player somehow make you worse thing? I just don't. You'd much rather have Oladipo and work out the kinks than not have Oladipo, my opinion.
To the Pacers up to this point, Derek, their strength and their safety has been in numbers. Their strength is their cohesiveness and the fact that they have safety in numbers. They can go 10 deep. Does that safety get interrupted at all with this great gelled unit of putting another piece in there? Only time will tell. And it certainly is difficult to think. I mean, the one thing you'll say about Oladipo this year when he's been there, he's been on the bench, he's been supportive and everything else. Now, I realized last year he was hurt. I think a lot of people would have liked to have seen him be by and with his team a little bit earlier than in the playoffs and missing a flight to come up. But that's neither here nor there. That's in the past. I'll be curious to see, how. And the other thing, too, I think people automatically think, understandably so, that Oladipo comes back and immediately is playing 35 minutes and getting you 22 points. Well, look, you talk to anybody that has been around big-time athletes coming back from an injury, and there is a psychological hurdle to overcome, right? I mean, there is a natural tendency of hesitation in your mind to make a cut or make a leap, and his explosiveness that separates him as a player is something definitely that is interesting to see what happens. What are you doing there?
Trying to adjust. The sun is getting in the camera again, so I was trying to adjust the blind to make sure that people could see my face, because I think probably 90% of the people on the YouTube stream
let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. The sun has set in the west since the beginning of time. You have the camera facing west. So when the sun's setting, it's looking right into the camera. I mean, it's not a shock that that's the direction that the sun is setting, right? It's been that way forever.
If it's pointed the other way, then it's just our parents enjoying dinner together. So I guess that would be Query and Schultz, technically.
That's right.
You know, that wouldn't be inaccurate.
Do you think your dad asked my parents if Santa was good to them?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, he always does that. It's neat that you know, obviously we've been able to forge a really strong friendship, and our parents have been able to do that as well.
Forced by work.
Other headlines today: Pacers getting another crack at an East contender. They host the Heat tonight. That's a 7 o'clock tip downtown at Bankers Life Fieldhouse. IU looking to get back on track against just a god-awful Northwestern team. That's a 7 o'clock tip. Hoosiers favored by 13.5. So if you want to know how bad Northwestern is, there you go.
What's going on with Chris Collins? I mean, remember, there was a time where he was thought to be the Coach K heir apparent, and like, oh, look at what he's going to do to turn around Northwestern, and it's kind of fallen back on hard times.
They made the tournament. They won a tournament game, right? They ended those 2 droughts, and then it really hasn't materialized for them. So I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. Rutger has really found itself. Rutger had a ranked win last night, and they've played well. They might actually make the NCAA tournament, which I think might eventually force us to add an S to for them to earn their S back. But the bottom of the league, the 2 bottom teams in the Big Ten are both awful. Northwestern is awful, and Nebraska is terrible. You know, look at some of the teams that those 2 teams lost to this year, and it tells you everything that you need to know. Georgia quarterback Jake Fromm becomes the latest quarterback prospect to declare for the NFL draft. I haven't actually seen where he's projected. I think he's somewhere in the round 2 range, right? Is he being talked about as a first rounder?
You know,
I know Easton at Washington had been talked about as a first rounder.
Truthfully, he's one that I was surprised. I didn't realize that he had a year of eligibility left. Seems like he's been at Georgia forever, right?
Yeah, Fromm's kind of the guy that I don't know, Jake. I'm not a scout or anything, but I watch him play, and sometimes I'm like, what's the BFD? I don't get it.
Fromm?
Yeah, you know, Georgia's loaded with talent. So maybe he just doesn't have to do as much, but he made one throw against Notre Dame that was an eye popper. But overall, when I've watched him and I've watched Georgia, like I remember thinking that Aaron Murray was going to be a good player, and that never materialized for him. They were a throw or 2 away from the national championship game in 2012.
Where did Aaron Murray was a big player, big quarterback, strong arm, and who drafted him, Derek? Because
I'm going to look it up right now because I don't
did he go?
know
Detroit,
the answer to that.
Maybe? No, that's Stafford, obviously. But Murray
Aaron Murray right now is an XFL quarterback for the Tampa Bay Vipers. So he is still playing professional football. He was drafted in the 5th round by the Chiefs, spent 2 seasons on their active roster, and then bounced around off-season practice squad, Cardinals, Eagles, Rams, has been out of the league since 2017.
Man.
But he was he was all SEC. He was a really good player, and you're right. He was I don't remember him necessarily being a big, huge dude. He had a big arm, though, right?
Yes.
Aaron Murray?
Yes. He's big guy.
Again, I'm not a scout, but I always thought that he had a pro career, a pro future, and clearly I was not right about that.
Okay, I'm going to tell you, Jake Fromm, Derek, I think first rounder, right?
Oh, I don't know. Probably. I mean, all these quarterbacks that even the quarterbacks that get like round 2 and round 3 grades end up in the first round because teams always reach for quarterbacks. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if he ended up being in the first round.
And there are a lot of teams that are going to be looking to build around a good new young quarterback, right?
Yeah. No, you're right about that. 239-1260.
I'm looking to see where he's projected.
Speaking of college football, we talked earlier today with Mark Howell, 2022 Indianapolis College Football Playoff Host Committee Board Chairman. And we'll replay that interview for you when we come back.
Before we do that real quick, Derek, speaking of City of Indianapolis sports executives, I want to point this out. If you remember, Derek, a couple of weeks ago, we did a fundraiser for the Wheeler Mission Women and Children's Shelter downtown. Our goal was to be able to hand a check over to $10,000 for the Wheeler Mission Women and Children's Shelter, as well as $1,500 to Ashley's House, which is a transitional housing facility for female veterans that Pastor Brown has started. And in that capacity, the Pacers offered up 4 tickets to tonight's game, as well as a parking pass to the first person to make a $500 donation. That $500 donation was made by a Riley parent who themselves had done a fundraiser and for their own medical costs and had kind of a surplus, if you will, of funds, and used some of that money to very generously donate $500 to the cause. So long as the 4 tickets and the parking pass were given to the family of a Riley child to be able to go to the game tonight. Those tickets were delivered yesterday to Riley by Eddie White. They were made possible by Rick Fusen, the president of Pacers Sports and Entertainment, and as a result of that, a family with a Riley child will be able to enjoy the game tonight as well as VIP parking at the Pacers Heat game. So thank you to that donor who asked to be anonymous, as well as Eddie White and Rick Fusen for making that possible. Part of why it's a great city to live in. And
Amen.
Speaking of that, a city with great events, and we'll talk about that next.
Busters, eat, drink, play.
They're back from ignoring each other the entire break. You're listening to Query and Schultz on Fox Sports 1260 Indy Sports Station.
Welcome back. It's Query and Schultz here on Fox Sports 1260, live from Keystone Sports Review. You can also, of course, see us on the YouTube stream. Just go to youtube.com/Query and Schultz. Right around the corner, I know that you know, Jake, because you're a big Clemson fan. You hopped on the bandwagon a couple of years ago when they started playing in this game.
Like in the early 90s,
When they started playing in this game just about every year. But the college football national championship game.
The Clemson Invitational, Derek.
Okay, don't get too cocky now. Don't get too cocky now.
Especially in 2022.
It's coming here to Indianapolis in just 2 years. And joining us now, a guy that is helping put all of this together. He is the Indy College Football Playoff Host Committee Board Chairman, and his name is Mark Howell, and he joins us on the Omnisource guest line. Omnisource, the best in metals recycling. Mark, thanks so much for the visit today. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for shining a spotlight on what's going to be one of Indianapolis' biggest sporting events ever.
So, Mark, let's get down to the brass tacks here on this. You know, this announcement came that Indianapolis would be hosting college football's national championship game about 2 years ago. And now here we are 2 years out from it. So in terms of the timeline and what all is put together, Indianapolis is used to putting on big events. What things maybe that are new or what new wrinkles for the city have to be explored between now and the time this game kicks off?
Well, I think kind of the strategy that the host committee has taken on is with such a great legacy of huge successful events, motorsports, Olympic events, collegiate sports. How can we take all of our successes and learnings from the past, but also make this event completely unique in its own way? I mean, you know, we're the first non-bowl city that gets to host this college football championship. We're the first cold weather city that gets to hold this. So there's some opportunities to do unique things, and we're excited about that challenge.
We know you guys are heading down to New Orleans on Monday to witness how they put on that big game at the Superdome. How important, Mark, are these site visits to figure out what may work for Indianapolis and what may not work for Indianapolis? Because I know each city is a different place, even though New Orleans is, you know, compact and all of that. I mean, I think New Orleans has a lot of similarities to Indianapolis, but we know that it's not obviously an exact carbon copy.
Yeah, there are a lot of consistencies. I mean, we were in Atlanta 2 years ago, which has a lot of consistencies with walkability. Like Indianapolis, we were in Santa Clara last year, and then New Orleans this year. And also, when it comes to Indianapolis, this will only be the 8th time. In 2022, that'll only be the 8th time that this college football championship game has been played. So not only the host cities learning, but the CFP itself is growing and evolving. So I think for the host cities to be together, I think for the CFP staff to be together, continue to learn what fans are responding to, how do you keep a very engaged, very fun, and very safe environment for fans and all the participants, players, media, and visitors.
File this under the category of get an inch and then ask for a mile, Mark. But when you look at the NCAA Final Four and Indianapolis getting into part of a rotation of guaranteed Final Four, I think it's every 5 or 6 years, could the college football playoff eventually go to that as well? And has there been any discussion or any exploration of Indianapolis throwing its hat in the ring of this becoming an every 5 or 6 year event?
That's a decision that's based with the CFP. We don't have a hand in that. I know the next 2 sites after us have been announced. That'll be Los Angeles and in Houston, and no other cities have been announced. I know it's very, very important to CFP that this become a national game and it moves around the country. But our greatest hope of getting into that rotation or getting this game again is to do an unbelievable job and provide an unbelievable experience in January of 2022.
Mark, what is the estimated economic impact? Is there any way of knowing that number? Maybe you can go off what happened at Santa Clara or what is projected to happen in New Orleans. Do we know what this is going to generate for Indianapolis?
Generally, the economic impact of this event has been more than $150 million. That's kind of the number that we're using. We believe that there's upside from that number, but $150 million is what we're most comfortable with. If you think about this, there will be 125,000 people in downtown Indianapolis for 4 full days. We have more than 1,000 credentialed media in town for that event. And it's not just the game, but really these events kick off on Friday and run through the game on Monday night. So there's a tremendous amount of activity that happens during the course of this event outside of just the Monday night game.
Mark Howell is our guest, the 2022 Indy College Football Playoff Host Committee Board Chair. He's on the Omnisource guest line. Mark, I want to go back to something you touched on earlier, because I think it's something that we take for granted, quite frankly, and that's the safety. Not to get obviously into politics, but 2020, 2021, 22, it's an unknown world virtually every day in terms of just making sure that people are safe at large events where people are gathering. Is that a nonstop effort to be prepared for it? Is there an evolution in terms of preparation and safety and all of the different organizations that go into a large event like this versus, let's say, 10 or 15 years ago?
Oh, absolutely. And really, I appreciate that you brought that up. There's 2, I think, really neat advantages that Indianapolis has in that area. One is we host so many big events. If you think about the Indianapolis 500 and these Final Fours, that the infrastructure of our city and the expertise of our people are really geared towards safety, not just from what we see in other cities, but what we've actually delivered locally. The other thing that's really important is the relationship between the College Football Playoff 2022 host committee and the public sector of Indianapolis is incredibly strong. And so as part of our contingent that will leave Friday to go to New Orleans, we've got a group of public safety officials from Indianapolis who will be joining us to work hand in hand with the other host committees, as well as the CFP staff and the actual public safety people in New Orleans, so that we continue to learn and get better.
Here's a really dumb question, Mark. but I want to see how in tune I am with my memory, I guess is probably best. I recall when Lucas Oil Stadium was built that for a certain amount of time, the lease that the city had with Lucas Oil Stadium and the Colts, the agreement, meant that the Colts got a certain percentage of proceeds of any football or non-Colts event that took place in Lucas Oil Stadium. I know that for the IHSAA, for example, that is waived, and the IHSAA is able to financially benefit. In terms of this event at Lucas Oil Stadium, will some of the proceeds, in fact, benefit the Colts?
Well, I don't want to get into kind of some of that confidentiality between the relationship and the Colts and the CFP, but what I will tell you is there has been no bigger supporter than the Colts and Eric Newberger, Lucas Oil Stadium, that entire organization, from the infrastructure, from volunteer hours, from economic support. I would say that the Colts organization, and Lucas Oil Stadium are a foundational element of us getting this bid and executing this event.
Now, do you have the pull to just go ahead and invite and secure Clemson now for this event, or do they have to take care of that on the field? I'm just, I'm lobbying. I'm doing what I can.
Is a Notre Dame person? If you give me Notre Dame, I'll give you Clemson, and I'll be there for that game.
Hell yeah. There we go.
Just make sure they don't play each other. We don't want a repeat of what happened last year, right, Mark?
Mark
Howell,
take another shot at it.
2022 Indy College Football Playoff Host Committee Board Chair joining us on the Source Guest Line. What are some of the concerns about hosting this event, Mark? Weather comes to mind. Look, first week of January, I should say, isn't a great time of year here weather-wise in central Indiana. But anything logistically that comes to mind that you guys want to hammer out here over the next 2 years?
Well, I think to be the host committee chair of an event like this, one of the prerequisites is that you be a warrior, because the real responsibility is to worry about everything and hope for the best. Issues like weather, we will be prepared. We've held lots of cold weather events in this city and have risen to the occasion when we always haven't had the luck of good weather. I think given the amount of time that we've had to be able to prepare for this event, there's a tremendous amount of contingency planning that's going into place with construction issues, with weather potential, and trying to make sure we're well prepared for those long before we need to be.
It's old hat, Derek. Big events, Indianapolis, old hat, right?
Yeah, we know what we're doing over here. Mark, thanks so much for coming on, and we can't wait for the game. I know it's still 2 years away, but it's going to be here before we know it. Appreciate your insights on all of this, and best of luck as you and your team continue to organize this and make sure that our city shines brightly on the national stage like we always seem to do with these events.
Hey, thank you for your support.
My hands on myself. Pick out dust them off, put them back up on the shelf. Here's my little baby girl isn't me. Am I coming out of left field? Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks. I've been feeling it since 1966 now. Might be over and now, but I feel it still. Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. Let me kick it like it's 1986 now.
Query and Schultz, brought to you by Dave and Buster's. Eat, drink, play.
The conversation continues 24/7 on Twitter at jQuery and at Schultz975. This is Query and Schultz on Fox Sports 1260 Indy Sports Station.
By the way, Derek, big scandal news in the world of sports centered right here from Indianapolis, Indiana. Big scandal in the world of sports resonating from right here in the 317.
Are we talking about IMS doing away with the urinal troughs? Because I don't think that's a scandal. I think that's a good thing.
No, that's actually been going on for a while, and for whatever reason, people are just now noticing. That's not it, though.
What's the scandal?
Kyle Rudolph, who you know is...
Oh, I did see that. Former Notre Dame star tight end, now with the Minnesota Vikings.
Who caught the...
game-winning touchdown pass?
Correct. After the game, Kyle Rudolph apparently was approached by a media member, or let me rephrase that, someone with a media credential, or presumably a media credential. I guess it could have been like a VIP or, but a locker room access
I retweeted
credential.
his tweet about it.
And said, hey, I'm doing a charity fundraiser. Would you be willing to donate your game-worn gloves and sign them? To which Rudolph did. Rudolph then discovered the gloves being sold on eBay for $375, along with a number of different sports memorabilia items.
Programs.
Correct.
Game towels, stuff like that.
The seller of said items on eBay is listed as shipping all items from their hometown of Indianapolis, Indiana. Now, I have my suspicions on which members of the Indianapolis sports media would do something like that, but I'm not going to say any names. I mean, there's no precedent in this town.
Who would have been at the Saints?
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, it could have been Derek.
Vikings game.
It could have been somebody who had a sponsor pass. You know what I mean? I mean, there's any number of ways. You don't have to be a media member per se to get those credentials.
Well,
it's not like there's anybody in this town who has used their pass to have like their kids go in and get Kobe Bryant's autograph or something like that. No one would do that kind of a thing.
Is it
right?
possible that the person selling got them from a media member and happens to live in Indianapolis? I mean, that'd be a quick turnaround. It's already Wednesday.
Well, not only that, I guess it's somewhat possible, not probable, but you can't rule out the possibility that whoever is selling them bought them at a charity auction. I mean, that's possible, I guess, right?
It'd be an awful tight window.
It is.
I mean, that game happened on Sunday.
I know. No, you're right.
Huh. Because I don't know any.
For those that don't know, this has always been my.
Any
we'll
of
just,
the
we'll
TV
just go ahead and
people
admit
that
it
would have
right
been
now,
down
Derek.
there or anything like that.
When you have a media credential to cover a game, using a media credential to cover the game means that you do not get autographs. It's like the very first rule. Now, open disclaimer. In my time as a media member, the only autograph that I've ever requested, I'm racking my brain to make sure that I'm not misquoting myself or misrepresenting myself here. I believe the only autograph I've sought that as a benefit I benefited from doing my job was I did during the Wooden Tradition when it was announced that they were doing the Wooden Tradition in Indianapolis. I had the pleasure of doing a sit-down interview with John Wooden. And after the interview, I had someone take a picture. I had someone take a picture, or someone else, actually, Matt Krieger, I think, took a picture of Wooden and I and sent it to me like, hey, I thought you'd want to have this. This is you talking to John Wooden. I then sent that picture to John Wooden's office and asked him to sign it in the mail, which he did and sent it back. The only other thing that I did, and this was totally naive and green of me, and I was wrong in doing it, but the very first big interview that I ever conducted as a media member was in 1996 when I was a freelancer, and I've told the story. I asked Tony Gwynn after interviewing him if I could get a picture because it was the first interview I had done, and he was the nicest human being on the planet, and not only did it, he had the Padres team photographer take the picture, And because he lived in Indianapolis in the offseason, he actually sought me out because I told him I worked at Hardwick's and brought the picture in the offseason and signed it for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, he lived in Fishers, right?
Correct. But I understand why someone who's new or getting a rare opportunity to have that credential may not understand the parameters that come with it, but it is kind of it is definitely
it's a huge
no
bugaboo.
cheering in the press box
Yeah.
is number one, and no autographs is number two. I mean, it's plain and simple.
I've never been a big autographs guy. Even when I was a kid, I was always a baseball cards person more than autograph person. But I think I have 3 autographs from my professional life, and they were all to commemorate shows that we did. I had Reggie Wayne sign something for me after we did 3 years of shows with Reggie Wayne, so I got a Colts mini helmet, and I had him write, to Derek, I don't know, thanks for the memories, you're a really good friend, Reggie Wayne. Something from the heart. I had Reggie just sign it. He wrote, you're a really good friend. I didn't ask him to say that.
He spelled it DERRICK, which was weird.
He meant that because we still are close. I shouldn't say were. It's not past tense. It's a current tense thing. Robert Mathis, who doesn't like me on Twitter anymore, and Jeff Saturday. Jeff Saturday, the first player show I ever did, it was called the Extra Large Lunch. It was on an old station called 950 that doesn't exist anymore, or it does exist, but it's not a sports station. And we did up here, 71st and Keystone, there was a place called Modesta's Kitchen. It was Southern cooking, so like chitlins and neck bones and all that stuff. Oxtail, it was awesome.
Jeff Saturday doesn't have a neck bone.
And we had Jeff Saturday on with us. It was Tuesdays
Strange.
with Saturday. And I had him sign something for me, like to Derek, appreciate the jazz hands.
So
We
you
had
helped
some inside
launch
joke.
Jeff Saturday's media career, and this show helped launch Pat McAfee's.
And Reggie Wayne, who repeatedly told
You're
us
right.
that he wasn't interested in doing media once
Is
his
Reggie
career was
still with
over.
the NFL
Oh,
Network?
yeah. Reggie does stuff all the time now. So we're kind of like the Bill Walsh of sports radio, where our coaching tree, if you will, thanks to our grooming, we've kind of allowed everyone else to spread their wings and fly.
Tony Mendez points out my Indy 500 helmet. True to an extent, except for that I don't use it. Like I don't take it to the race itself to have it signed. The 500 helmet, I guess, is probably a violation there too. Although I'll never sell it, number one, and ultimately it's going to the Speedway Museum. So I'm a little bit guilty of it.
I'll tell you this, I would never ever, if somebody gave me something, or especially under a false pretense like a charity auction, but even if I was given something or I had access to something that the general public did not, I would never put it on eBay. I just wouldn't do that.
Well, the biggest thing, Derek, is this. If being a media member allows you an access or a relationship where in a side or private environment you get something like that done, that's a little bit different than being in the locker room after the game and saying, hey, man, since you're taking those gloves off, can I have them? I know that sounds crazy, but you know what I mean? There's just a tact to it, to be honest with you. If you're wearing that credential on game day in the locker room, you should be there for a working purpose only. You know what I mean?
And I get that, like, when I'm at a game, I want to see. I don't call myself a fan of the teams because I'm not really a fan. I don't have, like, a Pacers jersey or a Colts jersey or anything like that. I want to see the team do well. But like Jonah's saying, I've never understood why rooting in the press box is bad.
Because it's a working environment.
It's just, I'm trying to think of how to describe it.
It's a working environment.
Yeah.
People are sitting there writing stories, or they're transcribing, or they're writing down the plays, they're shot sheeting. It's a working environment. You don't want
unprofessional sounds like it's being pretentious. And
Okay,
I'm not trying to be
this is-
pretentious,
Derek,
but
this
it's just unprofessional to do that.
This
to
is the
act that
easiest way to describe it, okay? The easiest way to answer that question. Give me a team off the top of your head in sports. Just
Besides the Pacers and
Just
Colts?
name a team off the top of your head.
Pacers.
Okay, the Pacers. If someone is reading an article about the Pacers game, and you're reading about last night's Pacers game, the Pacers lost by 5, and you want to know why they lost. You want the confirmation and the trust that the account of the game that you're reading is coming objectively and without bias. You want to make sure if the Pacers lost because they didn't shoot the ball well from the outside, or the Pacers lost because they were out-rebounded, you want to be informed as to why they lost, as opposed to the Pacers lost because the officials screwed them, or because so-and-so got cheap shotted or whatever else.
But honestly, Jake, some people don't want that.
However, the job of a media outlet that is objectively covering the game is to be able to do it without bias. And the way that you instill that in people that may not already have that objectivity professionalism is the condition and the rehearsal, if you will, from a game-to-game basis that they are to watch the game from an objective and non-emotionally driven standpoint. And therefore, whether or not somebody's dying on the inside during the game, you try to instill in them that they are not to outwardly show that emotion. It's the foundation, basic, simple step block of objectivity within a press box. What is ironic about it is theoretically, the bigger the market, the better the media or the more experienced the media. There are no media markets that are bigger pom-pom waving cheerleaders than those that covered the New York Jets, the New York Giants, the Jordan-era Chicago Bulls, or the Miami Heat. Those media contingencies are unbelievable. And yet you go to Indianapolis, Kansas City, Jacksonville, places like that, and for the most part, everyone is adhering to that. The only person I've ever seen in the Indianapolis media room during a Colts game that was cheering was Tony Katz, who was like dressed like Jim Irsay and was wearing an Indy 11 scarf and was waving pom-poms. And
he just didn't know.
Right.
In Tony's defense, I think he thought he was in a suite.
Right. And he was not allowed access back up into the media center.
Yeah.
Into the press room.
Yeah, I think we actually do a pretty good job. I'm not a big we and us guy, and I know that there are a couple of people that say we and us in the market, and whatever, to each their own. But I do think, Jake, that I think there are some fans that want Stephen Holder or people like that who cover the team, Scott Agnes, whatever, to be fans, to react the way that they would. It's a much more
blurred area, Derek, because of social media. But for example, right here, Jake, objectivity is not a requirement, obviously, for broadcasters like Lamy.
That's what I mean.
But those broadcasters are employees of the team. It's different. They're employees of the team.
But I think fans blur that line. I think we understand that line. I don't think all fans necessarily understand that line. I think some fans want you to be as invested in the team as they are.
When I was on the Ohio State Lantern, I covered the Ohio State University hockey team. My very first game, I was reprimanded by the athletic director of Bowling Green because I was cheering in the press box for my beloved Buckeyes. I soon found out what etiquette was. Yeah, I mean, that's the athletic director did you a service.
You know what's crazy? The loudest that I ever heard anybody reprimanded, or the most, blatant that I've ever seen anybody reprimanded at a game for cheering in a press box, is actually at an IU football game. And it was somebody with Indiana University Athletics who loudly reprimanded someone who was cheering for IU in the press box.
Who was it? Who got reprimanded?
Oh, damn. Oh, no, it wasn't. It was somebody I didn't recognize. It looked like it might have been one of the student broadcasters or something like that. This was years ago. This was, 8-10 years ago. And Jeff Kegg nipped that thing in the bud, man. he laid down the law.
Wasn't having it.
I thought it was great.
Here's the thing, Derek. A lot of times, the media members themselves, when they're sitting there, it's like they act like they themselves are going to get a ring. And, of course, you're not. Although if you are the voice of a team, an employee of the team, then you do get a ring if they were to win a championship. Folks, Derek, do you remember the ring we saw at Midwest Jewelers and Estate Buyers, the Roman-era ring?
Yeah, it's like a million years old.
2,000 years old that Brian has. Brian at Midwest Jewelers and Estate Buyers, folks, is absolutely fantastic because I remember talking to him about when he was 9 years old and he saw his sister's jewelry and he thought, that's what I want to do is make jewelry. And now here he is, over 20 years in business on Main Street in Zionsville, Midwest Jewelers and Estate Buyers. But, I've always been a watch guy. I love watches. Joe Moran was my boss at Hardwick's Pipe and Tobacco, and I remember Joe one time showing me his watch, and he said, you see this watch, Jake? This is an Omega Speedmaster. This is the watch that was designed for the astronauts to wear on the lunar landing. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, and they actually have an aquatic version called the Seamaster, which is kind of akin to the Rolex, the answer, if you will, to the Rolex Submariner. And I became fascinated by it and set out in my own mind right then a goal to eventually have an Omega Seamaster. And that's the great story about watches. They all have like their own individual story. And at Midwest Jewelers and Estate Buyers, they have the Watchatorium, the store within a store where they have their estate watches right there. Whether you're talking about Omegas or Rolexes that I just mentioned, IWCs or Hamiltons, they have it all. Brian has all of it there, and he loves being able to talk watch with you, whether you are a novice just getting in or somebody who has a passion for watches. That's what they have at Midwest Jewelers and Estate Buyers. And, of course, brand new watches as well, ball bearing, Oris Tissot. They have them all right there at Midwest Jewelers and Estate Buyers on Main Street in Zionsville. Not only are they selling estate jewelry, engagement rings, things like that, but they also are able to take care of the most popular styles, including sport, luxury, aviator watches, including full service right there in the store. Midwest Jewelers and Estate Buyers on Main Street in Zionsville. Absolutely fantastic. Stop by, see the Watchatorium, or just tell Brian and the folks we said hi. And you might be able to get yourself a ring, too. Maybe one from the Roman era. Derek, what are we doing next here at Keystone Sports Review?
Minor Bull Bleep, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Let's
Okay,
go.
Great.
It's Query and Schultz, Fox Sports 1260.
and Schultz, brought to you by Dave and Buster's. Eat, drink, play.
If you like listening to the guys, check out the live video stream of the show on YouTube. Just search Query and Schultz. The show continues now on Fox Sports 1260.
Derek, Indiana offensive lineman Corey Crunk, offensive tackle. Is it Corey or Coy?
Coy, C-O-Y.
Sorry, Coy Crunk. Started his first 4 games as a Hoosier, had an ankle injury that sidelined him for the year, has thrown his name into the transfer portal. He was believed to be on track to become a 3rd or 4th round pick had he entered this year's NFL draft, but of course, coming off injury, will instead transfer for next season. By the way, Crispy had mentioned that someone was bringing him food, but he's in here eating wings right now. It's very impressive.
Yep, he's got to keep up that energy. He's got an 8-day-old baby boy at home.
That's right. Trip. Good-looking baby.
Keep up that. Congratulations to Crispy.
As Tom Carnegie would say, good-looking.
The 3rd member of the Crispy Chicken Coop.
From somewhere north of Terre Haute.
2 boys and a girl for Crispy. And Megan, congratulations.
That's right.
Megan's the one that does all the work. Crispy just sits there and eat wings.
That's right.
And Megan is the one that really
and trims
does all
his
the work.
beard, apparently.
You ready for Biter Bowl Bleep?
I am.
Let's do it.
It's the most anticipated show segment in Query and Schultz history.
I'm so glad YouTube
It's
gets the
time
experience
for
this.
Buy It or Bullshit.
What are we at here in terms of the number of viewers right now, Derek?
Jeez.
20?
It says INC, which I think means incalculable. Incalculable.
Okay.
Biter Bowl Bleep brought to you by our friends at Keystone Sports Review. Home of Indy's best wings. It's where we're sitting right now and where we will be again 3 weeks from now. 2 January shows
I wonder if Crispy
for
can
2020.
surrender a wing there.
56 in Keystone.
What kind does he have?
On the northeastern edge of Midtown.
What are you eating, Crispy? Which ones?
Those are the best. Cajun
rub.
dry rub are the best ones.
I'd like to have one of those.
Please don't interrupt Biter
You
Bowl
think
Bleep
Larry
again,
can bring
Jake.
me a Cajun dry rub wing?
Please
I
save
can
it
eat one
until
on
after
the
Biter
YouTube
Bowl
channel?
Bleep. We've already played the intro. We got to keep rolling here. If you're new to Biter Bowl Bleep, here's what we do. I give a statement, and Jake and I go back and forth whether we buy it or we think it's Bowl Bleep. You ready to go?
Sure.
Statement 1.
You know what? Hold on.
Colts.
Clemson's playing LSU. I got to eat some Cajun. Hang on just a second, right? Dispose of some Cajuns. Go ahead with what
You
you're
got to
doing.
play Biter Bowl Bleep first.
I will. You read it. I'll go get a wing.
The Colts will trade up in the draft to snag a quarterback. Buy it or Bowl Bleep?
Hang on. I told you I'm getting a wing.
You couldn't do this while I was answering. You leave the room all the time when I'm talking. So I don't know why you had to wait. I don't think that they are going to do that. I'm going to say Bowl Bleep because I don't think that they're willing to take the draft capital that it's going to take to get from 13 to 4, which is probably what you're going to have to do to have
Really
a
good.
chance. It's the worst thing in the world to eat on the air. It's the worst of the. We're just talking about press box etiquette. Eating on the air is the
I know.
absolute
It's good
worst thing
sponsor
that you can
activation,
do.
though.
You can just hold it up to the camera and eat it during the break. People can see it on the live stream. They don't need to hear it over the microphone.
You want a bite?
No, because I'm not going to eat on the air because it's gross when you do that into the microphone. Sounds like a pig trough.
Trough.
We got
It's the
troughs
word
to
of the
talk
day.
about coming up here in a little bit. I don't think the Colts are going to invest what it's going to take to get to 4, and that's where you're going to have to go to get a QB2 because Burrow's going to go 1, and you've got those teams at 5, 6, and 7. The Panthers, I don't remember what the order is. Panthers, Chargers,
Dolphins are fifth.
Yeah,
Derek.
whatever order they're in. All 3 of those teams need a quarterback. And I think you're going to have to get in front of those teams if you're going to trade up. And I don't think that the Colts, at the very least, would have to attach 13 plus the Redskins pick, which I think is 34, and probably next year's 1. And it's just a lot to give up, plus the quarterback tax.
Derek.
It's a lot to give up to move up to get Tua or whoever you want.
If you look at the quarterbacks that are available in this year's draft, okay, Burrow, Tua, Eason, Fromm, Herbert. I mean, there's 5 right there. There are teams that have other needs as well. I mean, there's some elite level, Acuna is going to go in the top 3, so there's one more spot that is not a quarterback. I think Chris Ballard really values picks. There's a reason why last year they kept trading down and accumulating draft assets, and I don't think they do that. You don't work that hard to accumulate those assets in order to then move up 6 spots. I think the thought process is that the gap between a quarterback that you would take the 4th or 5th quarterback in this draft, okay, the gap is not as great as the gap you're giving up if you are surrendering the ability to build pieces in multiple spots with all of the draft picks you have. So I think, I could be wrong in this, I do believe they will draft a quarterback this year. I don't believe it's going to be because they moved up in the draft.
Statement number 2, buy it or bull bleep. Nate McMillan should get more credit for the Pacers' success this season.
Yeah, buy that 100%. Look, there are areas, of course, where Nate McMillan has, erred. I mean, that's true in any job. And I've made a lot of this the last few days, but I really think it's a good example of it. Aaron Holiday is the one guy that has really flourished this year. So too is Justin Holiday. But Aaron Holiday's come into his own this year, and that's because Nate McMillan noticed the way that he played when he didn't have the pressure of running the offense on him and put him on the floor with T.J. McConnell, who's played really well. And McConnell has really lifted Aaron Holiday up. And McMillan has found a way to get both of them on the floor at the same time within rotations. In addition to that, I think he's put T.J. Warren in good spots. Jeremy Lamb has had good games. And while there was a lot of concern about it and hesitation, it doesn't mean it always works. I think getting Turner to play offensively away from the basket and utilize his length to shoot from the outside and extend offenses out has opened up Sabonis on the inside and given him freedom. And so far, I think more often than not, that actually is working. So, yeah, I think Nate McMillan deserves some credit this year.
I think he gets an ample amount of credit, honestly. Should he get some more national credit? Maybe. I don't know. I think I'm the wrong person to ask, Jay, because I've never been a huge Nate guy. I think Nate McMillan is perfectly fine as an NBA head coach. And he's had a perfectly fine NBA head coaching career. He's coached for like 20 years. I think his teams have won one playoff series, but when you actually go to what the expectations were for each of those teams, he's performed around the level of what the expectations were. Nothing more, nothing less. The expectations this year, I will say, most people did not think the Pacers were going to be on this level, and they have been. I think here in Indianapolis, we were a little bit more confident with the pieces that they had.
Yeah, you didn't hear a lot about them in the preseason.
No, and I'm talking nationally. I think around here, people understood that this was going to be a pretty good basketball team. I think Nate McMillan has been fine. I don't want to have this come out as be like an anti-Nate thing, but I'm not, after years of questioning some decisions and all of that and saying he's a perfectly adequate coach, after one first half of this season, I don't want to suddenly say, oh my God, Nate McMillan, and start waving palms in the streets or anything like that. Statement 3, buy it or bull bleep. Archie Miller should be fired if Indiana cannot make the NCAA tournament this year.
This is a loaded one. I don't think he necessarily should, Derek, but I think if they did it, it's justified. Does that make sense? I mean, I can get away. Look, Kentucky knew that Billy Gillespie was not the guy right away, and so they pulled the plug. North Carolina knew that Matt Doherty was not the guy right away, so they pulled the plug. If Indiana determines after this year that Archie Miller is not the guy and they pull the plug, then I don't have an issue with it. I thought he was a good hire at the time. I thought it was odd at the time that we later found out that Fred Glass allegedly and apparently called no one else. That's just limiting yourself. But that's Indiana, right? Indiana continues to sell it. I mean, this is the same program that thought Kelvin Sampson was a good idea. Look, I thought Archie Miller was a good hire. I did. I think it's odd that if you brand... Here's the thing that's weird to me. Indiana prides itself and boasts itself on being a top 5 program in college basketball, yet when they have a coaching hire, they don't open up their resume. They don't take in resumes like a top 5 program. I mean, Selma Hayek is one of the 5 most beautiful women in the world. Selma Hayek, if all of a sudden she's available, doesn't just go ahead and lock down in a relationship with the first guy that's decent looking and somewhat known that comes her way. If you're Indiana, why are you... And I thought Archie Miller was a good hire, don't get me wrong, but I was shocked when I found out, wait a minute, you didn't even wait to see who else would have interest in it?
Yeah, that's a little bit surprising, even though I wasn't on board with Alford or some of the other guys that were talked about for having this job. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that we haven't really seen anything so far to indicate that Indiana is going anywhere. They're just kind of spinning their wheels, and it's not hard. It really is not difficult to make the NCAA tournament. It really isn't. Indiana last year, who basically punted an entire month of the season, damn near made the NCAA tournament. They lost, 12 of 13? That team was on the doorstep of making the NCAAs. In fact, if they got let in as an at-large, people would have accepted it. And I think they were 7-11 in their league. It is not difficult to make the NCAA tournament. It shouldn't be this hard. And you can sit here all you want to talk about, well, Crean and there were no upperclassmen. And look, Crean, there were some problems, and it wasn't getting better. And I agreed with their decision to move on. I thought it was time for both sides to move on, for Crean to move on and for Indiana to move on. But that doesn't mean that Archie Miller has ended up being the right hire. I don't think he'll get canned after this year because I don't think Indiana's going to eat all the money. So I think he's got at least 1 year left. But if you can't make the NCAA tournament on year 3, that's not on
That's a
Crean.
problem.
That's not on anybody else. That's on you.
Certainly, if they don't do it after year 4, when he's had
on
an
you.
entire, recruiting class time period, then there's an issue.
Bob Knight's worst teams in the later years that we talk about is these wilderness years for Knight, 95 to 2000, all made the NCAA tournament easily. Like, it wasn't even a question. They were all safely 6, 7, 8 seeds in the NCAA tournament. Last statement here for Buy It or Bull Bleep. If you don't get the holiday decorations down by this weekend, you're officially lazy. Buy it or Bull Bleep.
January 6th, apparently, and I appreciate Chris pointing this out to us. January 6th is the last day of, let me get the exact
It's
terminology.
Orthodox, right?
Yeah, Chris, who...
Orthodox Christmas or something?
Let me find it here. I don't know why. Here we go. Keep talking. I'll find this in a second. Here we go. Chris Roberts, who's a great guy, works out at the Speedway from time to time. Really like him. He says the Feast of the Epiphany, celebrating the arrival of the wise men, ends the 12 days of Christmas and is always on January 6th. So, yes, you said if it's not down by when, Derek?
By the end of this weekend.
Then, yeah, I think at that point, you're safe.
Yeah, your lights are depressing me. Please take them down by the end of this weekend. Makes
Right.
me sad. Makes me realize that there
makes
are
me
80
sad.
days left in January, and I miss Christmas and Santa and all the holiday goodness. Jeremiah Johnson talked Pacers with us earlier today. They got a big one tonight, about an hour from now against the Heat, and we'll re-rack that for you next. It's Corey and Schultz, live on Fox Sports 1260.
Guess who just got back today? Them wild-eyed boys that had been away haven't changed, had much to say. But man, I still think them cats are crazy. They were asking if you were around, how you was, where you could be found. Told them you were living downtown, driving all the old men crazy. The boys are back in town, the boys are back in town. I said, the boys are back in town. 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 You know that chick that used to dance a lot? Every night she'd be on the floor shaking what she'd got. Man, when I tell you she was cool, she was red hot. I mean, she was steaming. And that time over at Johnny's place, well, this chick got up and she slapped Johnny's face. Man, we just fell about the place. If that chick don't wanna know, forget her. The boys are back in town. The boys are back in town. I said, the boys are back in town. The boys are back in town. I said, the boys are back in town. 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 Spread the word around. Guess who's back in town? You spread the word around. Friday night they'll be dressed to kill down at Dino's Bar and Grill. The drink will flow and blood will spill. And if the boys wanna fight, you better let them
summer comes. Now that the boys are here again. The boys are back in town. 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 Spread the word around. The boys are back in town. The boys are back in town. The boys are back. The boys are back. The boys are back in town again. Been hanging down at Dino's. The boys are back in town again.
WND, HD2 Indianapolis. We are Fox Sports 1260, Indy Sports Station.
Hello, sports fans. Gunner and the Wings, etc. Fox Sports 1260 Sports Studio. The date is set for Victor Oladipo to make his season debut for the Pacers. The game, it'll be January 29th versus the Chicago Bulls after a 5-game West Coast trip. Now, a league source reports that the Pacers have made it clear they will be very cautious with his minutes. The blue and gold at home tonight, 7 o'clock versus Miami. Patriots quarterback Tom Brady had said in the immediate aftermath of Saturday's loss to the Titans that it was probably unlikely and hopefully unlikely that he would retire. Now he has expanded on this, writing on Instagram that he still has more to prove. College basketball, Northwestern and Assembly Hall to take on the Hoosiers tonight, 7 o'clock on the Big Ten Network. And rumors circulating that ESPN could be after CBS's Tony Romo to go into the Monday Night Football booth. Weather overnight down to 26. Tomorrow could have afternoon rain, but a lot warmer, a high of 54. It's Gunner on Fox Sports 1260.
Query and Schultz, brought to you by Dave & Buster's. Eat, drink, play.
If you listen closely, you might hear them yelling at each other during the commercial break. This is Query and Schultz on Fox Sports 1260 Indy Sports Station.
Keystone Sports View, 56th and Keystone is where you will find us. Jake Query along with Derek Schultz. What did you just give me a thumb up for?
Means Jeremiah's ready to go. Sorry, Jake. We've been together for 9 years, so I thought you would know
We've
by
worked
now
together. We haven't been together. We've
my
worked
non-verbal cues were on this show.
I didn't know we had Jeremiah coming up. The other day,
You have show notes right in front of you.
I asked a Twitter question the other day that said, tell me a teacher that made an impact and a difference on you growing up. And one of the responses came from Peru, Indiana, the circus capital of the world, Derek, so I know you like Peru, Indiana, that said Mr. Johnson was the best teacher that this individual had. And then actually said, by the way, that happens to be the father of our next guest who joins us on the Omnisource guest line. We're talking about the Pacers broadcast sideline reporter Jeremiah Johnson, who joins us on the program. Jeremiah, I don't know if you saw that tweet or not, but what subject did your dad teach and at what grade?
High school mathematics, calculus, high-level algebra, geometry, Peru High School, yep. And I saw the tweet, and I appreciated the response, and I will say that my dad appreciated it as well. So it was great that you're shining a spotlight on some of the educators around the state of Indiana, and I was touched to be able to see that the other night.
Were you a good math student?
Yeah, not too shabby. Better at math then, I think, than I am now. Sometimes live on the post-game show, I'm trying to add up bench scoring or rebound differential, and if it's not right in front of me, sometimes I catch myself saying, I wish my dad was right here because he was a human calculator. He could just do it like that, and sometimes now people rely on their phones too much to do math for them.
Yeah, I mean, algebra and calculus, to me, those should have been actually under the category of foreign language in high school. It was not a strong suit. There's something about the Bulls and the Pacers in terms of return games, and we're not talking about Michael Jordan and retirement, but Victor Oladipo. Am I correct, though, Jeremiah Johnson, in saying that while January 29th is kind of the target date or the announced date for Victor Oladipo's return, that still is a flexible date? Is that correct?
Well, we'll know a little bit more from Nate McMillan because at this point we've just heard from Victor, but I know he spoke to Shams and then also sent a message through the Pacers social media channel. So there has not been a specific press release announcement from the team, and I do look forward to kind of hearing what Nate McMillan has to say. He had a target date that he mentioned, I think, or at least his people mentioned to Woj, Christmas Day, and after that I asked Nate McMillan, and he said we don't really have a timeline yet. And, it makes sense for the team to be a little cautious and not to want to put a date out there in case there is a setback. But after, Nate said there was no timeline, he kind of clarified that again by saying the good news is there have not been any setbacks. So I do think that Victor maybe kind of initiated this a little bit, but I think they've been talking with the team this entire time, and it's kind of one of these decisions that involves a lot of different people. And to me, there's nothing wrong with having people get excited about it, but I don't know that, right now they're kind of locked into that because of what Victor has said and Victor only, and we'll see what Nate has to say later tonight.
What do you anticipate, Jeremiah, in terms of the time frame before, and maybe it's not this year, before we see Victor Oladipo like in a starting role and getting, say, 30-plus minutes?
Definitely not on the first night. I mean, I do think that when he comes back, and I think Nate has even been asked that if he would come off the bench when he returns, and I think he said, he's a starter, but it's not one of those things where he'll play as many minutes as necessary to win a game. I would assume when he comes back, he would be on a little bit of a minutes restriction, just my observation, and then maybe back-to-backs would be, something you'd have to, decide when the time comes whether it's something you'd want to do. I think the date that Victor has said he's coming back, there's not another back-to-back, I think, for a couple of weeks, so you have some time to figure that out. This injury is such that there are not many people that have had that injury, especially someone at the age that he is that relies on kind of explosiveness and athleticism. So it's really impossible to say he's going to come back on January 29th, and by March 13th, he's going to be 100% the Victor of old. That being said, I do think that, if they were extra cautious, if maybe he could have played in the middle of December and he's coming back at the end of January, one of the reasons would be that he can be closer to the Victor that he knows he needs to be, that he relies upon. And it's not the same situation as when Paul George came back and played those last 6 games, and you knew what you were getting was 70% of what Paul George could be, but you just wanted him to get that experience. I think it was important for Victor to come back and be as close to the Victor of old as he was because, for one, they need him to be 100% to be able to help this team, and that's kind of his game. His game is being able to go in and dunk and be explosive on defense, and if he's not that, then I think it's problematic for him mentally, and then that affects him physically.
We're joined by Jeremiah Johnson of FS Indiana. I know it's just January, JJ, but tonight's game against Miami, or really any of these games, now that we've seen a separation of the top 6 in the East, so Miami, Milwaukee, Philly, Boston, Toronto, even though we're not even at the halfway point of the season, how important are these games, do you believe, going to pay at the end of the year because of how tightly bunched these 6 teams are? Maybe you take Milwaukee out of that because they've created a little bit of space. But am I right in saying that, heck, the difference between the 4 seed and the 5 seed and hosting a first-round series could be some of these games?
Absolutely. I do think Milwaukee has separated themselves a little bit, and right now the Pacers are 8.5 games behind Milwaukee, but just 3.5 games behind Miami. And if you'd have won that game in Miami at the end of December, if you'd have basically grabbed one extra defensive rebound, think where you would be. And I think the last 2 years are proof you have to take these games seriously because despite 48 wins each of the last 2 seasons, the goal was a home court advantage in the first-round series, and you basically finished a game or 2 short. And you could say it's a game against Cleveland last year or a game against, Charlotte this year that could come back to haunt you. But the games that are head-to-head, tiebreaker situations and implications go into things. And last year, the Pacers had that chance against Boston at the end of the season to have the home court advantage, and they didn't take advantage of it. And now you know in January that this could help you, and you have a couple of games yet remaining against Miami that, hopefully you'd have Victor Oladipo back for those games, but you need to even up this season series. And so that's one thing that has changed. A couple of years ago, people would ask Nate McMillan about a game or a matchup, and he would kind of give it the 1 of 82. And while he still says that, he also has the standings board up in the St. Vincent Center, and he does remind his guys, this game is big. They're right ahead of you in the standings, and the players say those things to me. So they're kind of like fans in that they understand this game is big. The key is you can't let down for the other games. So they'll play hard tonight, and that game at Miami was maybe the best game I'd seen all season in terms of two teams fighting and giving it their all on every single possession. So I expect the same tonight.
Jeremiah, when you look once Victor Oladipo comes back, and let's assume that he comes back and is infiltrated into the offense, that's going to mean minutes taking away from someone, and then, of course, you kind of tighten your rotation as the year goes on. I've asked this question to others before. I'm curious your answer on it. Once Oladipo's getting more minutes and that rotation is shortened, who loses minutes that gets kind of pushed out a little bit?
Well, I think that initially the rotation will expand. Now, Nate McMillan likes to play a 9 or a 9.5-man rotation, but I could really see, especially with Victor maybe not playing as many minutes in each game, I could see him going to 10 and maybe even in a certain situation, as crazy as this sounds, maybe 11 in February and early March. And then it's almost a little bit of an opportunity for him to test rotations and for guys to prove themselves, to prove that they need to continue to be on the court. I will say that, Edmund Sumner would be the initial one that is getting some playing time now, that if everyone is healthy, maybe he is the odd man out. But you look at the backcourt, Jeremy Lamb, I think, when he signed in the offseason, he kind of understood that he would start until Victor Oladipo came back, and then he would be, off the bench. But I think he'll still get heavy minutes. Well, then if he goes at the 2 guard, then you basically, if everyone is healthy, and that's a big qualifier because there have been other injuries to guys like Malcolm Brogdon and other players up to this point, you've got Aaron Holiday and T.J. McConnell, and right now I have a hard time seeing either one of them out of the rotation because they've been so important for the different things that they do. So I think it's initially you expand the rotation, you let everybody play a little bit, and then you don't make your decision until you've had a chance to kind of see how those groups work together. But the thing I'll say is the second unit has been so good, you don't want to shake that up too much. And I say that second unit with Sabonis because he's been running with the other 4 backups or the reserve players, and that's been an advantage. And 4 out of every 5 games, it seems like.
The observation I made yesterday, Jeremiah, and I want you to feel free to disagree with it or tell me if you think it's accurate. I mean, you see every possession. Aaron Holiday has really flourished this year in terms of his ability to score for Indiana. But to me, that happens a lot of times when he's on the floor with T.J. McConnell running things and getting people in position. And Aaron Holiday has been able to really blossom, especially with McConnell. And so, therefore, it makes it difficult for Nate McMillan. If you're going to take minutes away from, say, a McConnell, then you've got to see how Holiday responds to that because those two play very well off of one another when they're on the floor together. Fact or fiction?
I think you've got it. And, to answer the previous question that you asked, I guess despite Aaron Holiday starting a lot of games and playing so well, there could be a situation where in the playoffs, if the rotation is a little bit shorter and it's a trust factor, he could maybe lose out on some playing time, but he also could be the guy that maybe doesn't play in the first half, and then you put him in if you need to spark offensively in the fourth quarter. Because I do think the coaching staff has done a really good job in finding and seeing what Aaron Holiday does well. And I asked Chad Buchanan last week if what they're seeing from Aaron Holiday is what they expected when they drafted him. And he gave credit to the coaching staff because I think they thought they were maybe drafting someone that could be a point guard of the future kind of player. And I think he really is a 2 guard. He's maybe a little undersized, and that could be an issue moving forward depending upon the point guard that he is starting next to. But he just seems to be such a scorer and not really a pass-first kind of player. He's good to have on the court in the fourth quarter. We've seen some games this year where he, felt no pressure late in the game, and he had the confidence to drive in and to take a big shot. But it sometimes is not a pure point guard and maybe doesn't get the other guys involved as well as a guy like T.J. McConnell. And we saw it in Charlotte. Coach left T.J. McConnell on the court late into the fourth quarter because they needed to get that offense moving and generate some productivity.
JJ, we have and I know you're aware of this because you're a listener to the show. We have a hugely popular segment called Buy It or Bull Bleep that we do every Wednesday.
Nobody listens to it.
And one of our Buy It or Bull Bleep statements was Nate McMillan should get more credit for the Pacers' success this year. Buy it or Bull Bleep. And I'll actually just present that to you. Do you buy that McMillan maybe is the guy that gets kind of forgotten about in when we're assigning credit to this Pacers, what a lot of people would say is a surprising start? But I think here in Indianapolis, we were confident that this was around the Pacers team that we would be able to see this season.
First things first, big fan, and I'm such a fan that sometimes I'll give you guys credit because you do the Buy It or Bull Bleep segment a second time, and Jake acts like he's never heard the question the first time. Is that correct, or are you replaying it?
He is good at that.
I try.
I think he's mostly ignoring me the first time.
We do the same thing, an interview that airs at 6:35 on Pacers Live pregame might air again later in the broadcast because we know not everybody is tuned in 45 minutes before a game. But great job on that. And I was listening actually to your segment on the way to the Fieldhouse today. And I think it's interesting because sometimes Nate McMillan gets more credit nationally than he does locally. And maybe that's just from me kind of following a lot of fans on Twitter and kind of seeing after a loss the frustration. It's maybe what we call the vocal minority. But I don't think he gets enough credit because any other team that loses its best player for basically an entire calendar year, I don't think they're able to do what this team has been able to do. And then to have basically for the second time in 3 seasons an entirely remade roster where you've got the same coaching staff and you have similar philosophies, but you have to tell all of these different players, this is how we play defense. This is what we do in Indiana. This is kind of our offensive philosophy. And to see them start so well, I just think anytime that in December and January, nationally, people can say, wow, the Pacers, they're a surprise team again, you've got to give the coaching staff some credit for that. I understand the frustrations that some fans have, and you mentioned it, I think, as you and Jake were talking earlier today. But I think that, maybe not coach of the year, like sometimes people like nationally want to say, oh, look at the Pacers, Nate McMillan should be the coach of the year, but he definitely needs to be given some consideration. And I do think his after timeout plays, especially in the middle of games, sometimes don't just focus on what happens with 2 minutes to play, but when they call a timeout or they come out of a timeout at the end of a quarter, how many times do they diagram a play? I mean, Doug McDermott is almost open every time to start a fourth quarter, and that's because they're diagramming something for him, and he's executing.
All right, Jeremiah, I've got another one for you. The guy to me that is a great enigma, because at times I'm going to describe a Pacer player, and then I want Jeremiah Johnson to guess which player I'm describing, okay? At times this player, when given opportunity, has shown an ability to score the ball and, in addition, to add some rebounding prowess. Other times this player goes out and is invisible, and now, for whatever reason, has completely fallen out of rotation where I wonder when and where he's going to see minutes again. Who am I talking about?
Well, if he's fallen out of the rotation, I guess you're talking about TJ Leaf.
Correct. What now? Are we going to see, or what opportunities are going to have to present themselves for TJ Leaf to get back out on the floor?
Well, I mean, that's a tough one because, honestly, the second unit, I think, really kind of found its stride a little bit when Justin Holiday was playing the 4. Now, you could argue you sometimes will need some extra rebounding and someone to play the backup 4 position, especially if Sabonis and Miles Turner are in foul trouble. Now, those guys are pretty much playing the 5 or Miles starting as the 4. But I don't feel like the way they're playing right now and the cohesion that they have with the second unit that there are a lot of opportunities. I even wonder if they had an injury or they needed someone else to rebound, as you say, or provide some defensive intensity. It might be Jakar Sampson, because I do think he provides even a little bit more experience in rebounding. And I guess the thing that I'll say about TJ is I feel like he should be, in this point, maybe a little bit better of a shooter. I mean, you draft him out of UCLA, you thought he was kind of a stretch 4 that could really knock down threes. And it's tough in the limited playing time sometimes to get in and you play 4 minutes and you're expected when you're wide open to knock down a shot, but he's just not been the threat from outside. And if he's not hitting the three-point shot, defense is one of those things he has to be just okay at because he's not going to be an excellent defender. Now, when he played what we call the stretch 5 a couple of times this year when there were injuries, he did have big rebounding nights. And there's, the one game specifically, I don't remember the numbers, but it was something like 15 and 16, or it was a stat line where you were just, wow, look at the game that TJ Leaf had. But then the game right after that, he was kind of the enigma that you referenced. So with everyone coming back to health and more players getting healthy that have contributed, it does feel like that, at least for the remainder of this season, it's not in the cards for TJ, but they did extend his deal into next year. So they haven't given up on him, and maybe there will be a time. And you do have to understand his age. I mean, he could still be a senior at UCLA. Did he come out too early? Maybe. But if he's still at UCLA and he's knocking down three-pointers and he's playing great in college basketball and you start his NBA clock next year, I wonder how he could be. So that's where I caution people of giving up on him too early.
And, hey, man, he got that first-round money, right? Guaranteed deal. So I'm with you that I think a lot of these guys come out too early, but then when you look at it financially, it makes a lot of sense if you could lock yourself into being a first-round pick.
It's like when we decided to do this show and we're on FM, you know what I mean? And then once you're AM only, it's like back in you got to take it while you can, right?
More than enough is going to make.
What do we have watching on YouTube? 42 people.
But you're on YouTube now.
Yes,
I mean, that's
we
a big
have
deal.
81,000 that are watching right now.
Okay, let's take every possible way that people can listen that actually financially incentivizes us and move them over to YouTube where we get nothing. That's a great idea
for you. Pacers and Heat.
My question is, I haven't tuned into you guys on YouTube yet, but when you have a guest on, such as myself, and you're asking me a question and I'm talking, do I just get a shot of you guys nodding in agreement? Or
yeah, it's ridiculous. We should have a graphic that says on the phone, Jeremiah Johnson, right?
We will have that.
Well, then
Jeremiah,
we're going to hire a producer.
Jeremiah, let me ask you something.
We will have that.
Let me ask you something, Jeremiah. You worked in television, right?
Correct.
You work in television now.
I
you work
still
in
do,
local
actually,
television.
yes.
Yeah, you worked in local television. Now you work in regional/national television. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, along the way, you started in Terre Haute, right?
Actually, my first job was in Hazard, Kentucky.
Okay. Hazard, Kentucky.
Even smaller than Terre Haute.
Okay. Well, you're familiar, obviously, with the Terre Haute market. Basically, what we're doing here is like early morning Brazil farm reports. That's the equivalent of the television work we're talking about here. You know what I mean?
It's got no chance if you're going to cut our legs off before we
I'm
can
just
run.
telling you.
You might say that, but when my son gets home from school, one of the first things he does is he checks YouTube, and he has his own YouTube channel, and he may be more likely to find you on YouTube if you could start trending than maybe he would be on 1260 AM.
This is great.
So
We're rivaling
what Derek is trying to do.
Yeah. We're rivaling South Korean boy bands on YouTube channels.
JJ,
Great.
you get the show. You get the show. Pacers and Heat pregame 6:30 FS Indiana. You can follow Jeremiah
Not
JJ
on YouTube.
Fox Sports Indiana on Twitter. Thanks so much, my man. Always appreciate it.
I look forward to coming back when the graphic comes on YouTube when I'm on. And
That's right.
Send the link to this to my son when he's checking his trick shot video channel.
Fox Sports 1260 has your shot at $1,000 now. Text the nationwide keyword JOCK to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's JOCK to 200-200. Good luck. They're the two most handsome fellas in Midtown. You're listening to Query and Schultz on Fox Sports 1260, Indy Sports Station.
Derek, this is wonderful. Lisa brought us in some Purell food service surface sanitizer, which is perfect
That's
because
right.
your studio's disgusting.
Great for the studio.
You know what? I'm actually taking this home.
No, please don't take it home. Please
Yeah, I'm
take it
taking
to
it
the
home.
studio.
No,
Nobody
I'm
cares about the germs in the 2-bedroom apartment where you live alone. You need
Now this is
your
perfect.
public spaces to be sanitized.
Yeah, okay. It's also fragrance free, so that definitely is for you, right? I'm a little bit more of a scented guy. I'm wearing my Tom Ford today. Did you smell it?
No, I have a natural musk,
wonderful.
so
Smell
I
it.
don't
Smell
need.
it.
No, I don't want to smell.
Oh,
Please don't.
that's the smell of luxury right there, buddy.
Please
you
don't
want to
ever
feel
do
like
that
you're
again.
walking through Saks? There you go.
Please. What's Saks?
Exactly.
At jQuery, at Schultz
It's more than an
975
instrument,
on
Derek.
Twitter, because so many people were wondering, hey, we heard that your parents are best friends and they're eating dinner together at KSR. Will you send out a picture? I just sent one out of the lovely Schultzes and the
I don't know
lovely
that my
Queries.
parents gave permission to have their likeness broadcast over
Your
the
dad said
the
it was okay.
multiwebs.
Your dad said that people have been coming up to him asking if he was your dad, and he just denies it every single time. So, yeah, he just says, that's not us. That's somebody else
That's
that's
right.
here.
I haven't actually gone over and said hi to my parents yet. Probably should do that.
You might want to do that.
I just saw him. I just saw him at the holidays. Spent a lot of time with him.
But it's been great seeing everybody. I mean, Crispy is here, which is a huge thrill. He's never been to KSR before.
Paid too. Crispy paid.
Turnbuckle's been here for like 7 hours, which is awesome. He's just camped out over here. We saw Brandon and Matt Lakin, our buddy James, Jordan and Katie, so many others that have been here. Josh in the back. Really, really cool. Please don't spray me with the hand sanitizer, Jake.
I can't figure out how to spray this thing.
In fact, speaking of sanitizer, we've got an IMS story to get to. A big development. Roger Penske has officially taken ownership of the Speedway. Everything has been closed out, so it is good to go. And his biggest change is a change that I've been clamoring for years and years and years. And we'll tell you what that is when we return on Query and Schultz, live from KSR, Fox Sports 1260.
And he's the richest guy in California.
Is he?
I believe so. I don't think there's anybody that's close. I think Ganassi was up there. Their youngster has got the most money American sports series.
Oh, okay.
Might as well. I think it's good. Yeah. Bring it into the next decade. I don't know how long it's going to be.
Roger? Yeah, Roger. 78 years old.
The guy, racer. Did he ever qualify?
If he did, I'd never do anything. He would do anything.
He was a racer.
Their new tagline? Purell.
Started off.
They started out as a
Do I want to see his drivers win, though?
They do a lot of Italian stuff.
Kind of seems like it's a conflict of interest now going forward.
Well, that's what I kind of want to do.
Trivia for you, ready? Where are they based?
Who drives for him? There's Casanova, Canon.
Nope.
I've been there, man. It's still a
It's not the Le Mans series, it's the American.
Oh, actually, he's not the racing the 500 for sure.
He might.
Derek, you guys have a founder? You guys have a founders now? Is that
Yeah, they're a sponsor.
It's not his club.
oh, okay.
Oh, because I've got a, I had to charge the iPad. So these are live? Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, Founders has been with us for, I don't know, 6 months. I think they came on in the fall. They've been super cool. They've done a bunch of events with us too. Yeah. I always thought they were like California or something. They're in Michigan. Yeah, Michigan. I didn't know that.
Hey, great man. Their daily wagers on. Do you need that for your bets?
No, I'm good.
Are you on ESPN2 now and listen to this?
That's right.
I'm wagering your $1 or $2. I was like how he wagers. I put $2 on the money line yesterday.
Little bets.
That's right. That's
I'm doing pretty well. They gave me FanDuel gave me some money to play around with, and I've tripled it. So
good for you.
Yeah.
You guys get? I have to sign up one of these days for one. Do you guys get like a little kickback or anything? If you guys, I mean, when I use like your promo
code, it's WNDE. You get a free. Your first bet is risk free. So if you lose,
I know, but does it benefit you guys?
Oh yeah, they track all that stuff. I know that. Yeah, so that's good.
Well, they called me and they wanted to come here and do a mass sign up one time, and I said, well, let me talk to my brother first. I never called her back. Because what, DW3s is advertising now that you can bet with them or through them or something like that, I thought I heard?
Hooters. Yeah,
oh, Hooters.
We're actually doing an appearance out there later in the month. Hey. Yeah, the lineup. Yeah. That mic is
did I say something bad?
No, just for the stream, just so we know. Because I had to charge the iPad, so I took it out of the audio feed. Wing recipes.
Well, yeah, the blue cheese. If I let the blue cheese recipe get out, that would be the big deal.
Congrats again.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Tell Megan we said hey. Out of my parents on the way out.
Hey, like I said, I'm glad you said something because you guys know I'm on the air with you. I always know.
I know. Yeah, we just wanted to make sure. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Glad to help. Yeah, thank God I didn't give your guys' real names instead of your stage names that you guys use. We don't want people to track you down.
Your dad comes up. It appears as though our parents' dining experience is coming to a conclusion. I'd like to know who paid the bill. Did they go Dutch? Or who paid the bill?
Oh, yeah. Because my dad is very much take the check guy, but I don't know. Your dad strikes me as that person as well.
There you go.
That's right. Large pizza for your dad. So
and
that
the
was
pizzas
the
are half
deal-breaker.
off, and your dad was still putting down stipulations. Fair enough. Hey,
he's a CPA, Jake. He's a numbers guy. Does not mess around.
I guess. He can do my 9 different. Is it W9? Is that what you get that they send you?
I don't know.
What is it they send you?
I'll give you his email address when we're off the air here, and you can.
Oh, I've got it already. We email fairly regularly together. Just so you know.
The Indianapolis Motor Speedway's new owner is Roger Penske, the captain, a wealth of racing and business acumen and knowledge over many, many decades. And so I'm not surprised at all that Roger Penske identified the first thing, the most glaring issue at the world's greatest racetrack is the urinal troughs in the men's bathrooms. Reportedly,
Derek, for
Penske and the new ownership.
For those listening to this program who either A, have never been to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, B, if they were there for a limited amount of time and did not have to use the facilities, or C, are women and have never been in the men's bathrooms, how would you explain the visual of the men's restrooms at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway? Because I have a bit of a au contraire, but you go ahead.
The best way I can describe it is, like, have you ever woken up in a cold sweat from a horrible nightmare? Times that nightmare times 100, and that is like the turn 3 bathrooms, men's bathrooms at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That's the way that I would describe it. I'm so happy that they're talking about overhauling these urinal troughs because they really are the most horrific, outdated, antiquated things in our city.
Okay, it is true. Now, let's go kind of decade by decade. I wasn't alive in the 50s and I was alive in the early 70s, but I wasn't in the men's room at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But during that time, the restrooms were the buildings that you see, like in the infield or just on the outside of the turns. And you had the back wall was basically a bench with every 8 feet or so holes
Do we really
that were a
have
latrine.
to do like the history of?
I'm just telling you. Then they upgraded them to stalls. Then the stalls did not have doors, but they had stalls, no doors. Very military barrack type setting. What you have now is you go in like in turn 3 on the outside of the turn. It's a building that when you go in has several rows of basically large like gutters with water that is consistently flowing in them. It's very efficient. It's a very good way to get as many people in and out as possible. Some of the stalls have doors, but I don't know that all do. But if you go into the speedway on the main straight, along the main straightaway by the paddock or by it would be the southwest vista, they've already got urinals in all of those. So this is not new news. They've done this for a while. Now, it is my understanding that Roger Penske, when he did the walkthrough, that was one of the areas that he targeted for improvement. That is correct. But
he identified it immediately.
But I think that there's a rite of passage that comes, a coming of age that comes in growing up in this area of dealing with those bathrooms. It's just kind of part of it.
I strongly disagree. First Indianapolis 500 I ever went to, I was a senior in high school. It was 2000. Montoya won 2000, right?
Correct.
It was the year Montoya won. And I went with my dad. We were sitting in turn 4, and about 90 laps in, I don't know, somebody crashed or something. There was a caution. And my dad said, do you want to hit the bathroom real quick? And I said, sure. And I'll admit, growing up in suburban Connecticut, maybe I had a little bit of a sheltered upbringing and all of that. But we go up the steps into the turn 4 bathroom, and there were people that were...
Now, keep in mind we're in a restaurant, Derek.
Yeah, I'm not going to get real graphic about this, but people were facing each other on either side of a large bathtub.
Right.
And
which also doubles, by the way, that if you might have noticed, there were 2 spigots of water coming out of the top of the bathtub. It also is where you wash your hands.
And it's just seared into my brain forever that those gentlemen standing there facing one another. And they had no problem with
it's
it. Like it was
Derek.
completely normal,
Right.
and I think 2 guys were having a conversation. If I remember, I was only in there for about 5 seconds. It felt like, 50 minutes. And I turned out, and immediately, I don't even remember what happened to my dad. With my dad, I turned out, my face was pale white, and I don't know how I made it down the stairs. I think I blacked out for a little while, and not like in a good Indianapolis Motor Speedway blackout way, like a bad, like terrified Indianapolis Motor Speedway blackout way. And I'm glad that no one else will have to go through what 17-year-old me went through.
It's a shame.
It's horrible.
It's been toughening people up on the west side since 1911.
Just awful. Thank God those things are going away.
Now, they are going to also, I think, paint the restrooms.
I did see that, yeah. And maybe hand dryers for the instead of paper towels, or is it the other way around? Are they replacing the hand dryers with the paper towels?
They're contemplating allegedly hand dryers.
Okay, because I haven't been in a Speedway bathroom since Y2K, so I don't know what's even in there.
Okay.
I use the media bathroom, which is fine. It has dividers and it's 21st century level bathroom. I don't use the other one.
Do you want to know a Jake Query insider secret?
You use those family restrooms, don't you, you monster?
No, I don't do that. But I do know where there is a private
that made it easier for him. But I've actually really played parts on here. Perfectly good. He's laying on me, whatever.
Derek, you say you've been using the FanDuel a lot?
Yeah, it really